everybody, and welcome to the Maitland City Council meeting of February 22nd, 28th, 2022. If you would please silence your phones or other devices so that we're not disturbed during the meeting. This evening we're going to have sort of an invocation. We'll take a moment of silence, although we just had one. Let's have another one. A unified moment of silence. Thank you. If you would please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a couple of presentations before we get into the business of the evening, but the presentation, first order of business, is the employee of the quarter. If I could have Daniel Holland come down. He's going to the podium. Yes, sir. All right, I am going to present you with the employee of the quarter. But first, I'd like to read a little bit about you, if you don't mind. All right. Officer Daniel Holland began his career with the City of Maitland Police Department on June 22nd, 2017. In March 2020, Officer Holland joined a newly developed Community Services Division within the Maitland Police Department. The goal of this division is to increase agency transparency while directing engaging Maitland residents, community partners, and businesses. Officer Holland took a further step in the creation of multiple programs to directly and positively influence our partners. Officer Holland was instrumental in the creation of the Special Needs Registry, which is utilized by both Maitland Police and Fire and Rescue. This program provides a channel of communication with our first responders for any resident who has a special need that is beneficial to police and fire and rescue to prepare an operational response prior to arrival. While still developing the Special Needs Registry, Officer Holland took the initiative to begin educating and helping local residential communities reestablish and begin new neighborhood watch programs. And also establishing a new clergy program with multiple houses of worship within the City of Maitland, further bolstering the advocacy programs throughout Orange County. Officer Holland achieved his state certification as a Florida crime practitioner and reinstated our agency's crime prevention program, which encourages collaboration with our local business partners and offers the benefit of a multidisciplinary approach to crime prevention. Multiple businesses, from large corporate offices to small family-owned stores, have now expressed interest in the Maitland Police Department crime prevention program. So it is with great pleasure that I recognize the employee of the quarter, Officer Daniel C. Holland, for his extraordinary service and dedication to the citizens of the City of Maitland. Presentation this evening is the retirement resolution for Norma Jean Forrest. Is Norma Jean with us? There she is. Oh, way over there. Okay. Norma Jean, would you like to come over here on this side of the room? I will read your resolution. All right. Whereas Norma Jean Torres has served the City of Maitland with dignity, loyalty, honor, and outstanding ability as a member of the Maitland Fire and Rescue Department for the past 31 years. And whereas Norma Jean was born in Canton, Ohio, and raised in Orlando, Florida. She and her husband Sam of 31 years. See a pattern here. All right. Her husband of 31 years have 2 children, a son, late Brian, a daughter Samantha, and husband George. She is the grandmother of 3 beautiful grandchildren, Parker James, Aliyah, Blair, and Brighton Allison. And whereas Norma Jean began her career with the City of Maitland in 1991 as a secretary clerk and became a staff assistant in 2000. In 2004, she became a fiscal assistant and lastly became administrative assistant to the fire chief department in 2005. And whereas Norma Jean was instrumental in many aspects of the department, she worked for 5 fire chiefs throughout her long career and was involved in budget preparations, expenditures, payroll, amongst many others. In fact, throughout the years, the common phrase, "Go ask Norma Jean," could be heard throughout the fire administration when there was a question. The Maitland Fire Rescue Department would not be where it is without the input and assistance from Norma Jean. And whereas Norma Jean, through her unwavering sense of duty, has instilled the values of pride, honor, integrity in all members of the organization, has earned the respect and admiration of the fire department, city council, and city staff, who had the good fortune to work with her for these many years. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John P. Lowndes, and the members of the City Council, on behalf of the residents and employees, express our deepest appreciation and gratitude to Norma Jean Flores for her faithful, dedicated, and devoted service to the city. Further, City Council, on behalf of the residents and employees of the city, express best wishes and continued good health and prosperity to Norma Jean Flores during her retirement years. Thank you. You want to say a few words? Do you have anything to say? I would ask you.
I just want to thank everyone that I've worked with in the past. I've loved working for the city. This has been a great city to work for. So thank you very much for the opportunities that you've given me.
Okay, we have a moment to Okay, we have a public hearing this evening on the ordinance and CDP amendment to lot number 1 of MCN regarding drive-throughs. Laura, would you please read the title?
The ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, amending the 2035 City of Maitland Comprehensive Development Plan, 2035 CDP, by amending the future land use map 2.1 to identify Lot 1 of the Maitland Concourse North as allowing drive-through uses and amending the future land use element standard 1.1.39C to allow drive-through use on Lot 1 of Maitland Concourse North. The property is located to the north of Maitland Boulevard and to the west of Maitland Avenue, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Mr. Maitland, would you like to introduce the item?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. Just as a reminder, this property is located on Lot 1 of Maitland Concourse North as the party to the request. Currently zoned planned development in the Corridor District Future Land Use designation. And since the January 24th continuance in the introduction, at the January 24th continuance, the applicant came with 3 additional standards added, and that was to limit Lot 1 to 2, maximum of 2 drive-throughs, and the cumulative maximum square feet of 10,000, and limiting the drive-through uses to the western 500 feet of Lot 1. Since that introduction, the applicant had heard a lot of the comments that came at council and had offered an additional portion to that amendment that would sunset the CDP amendment, so it would revert back to the prohibition of drive-through uses if a PD amendment is not approved by March 1st of 2024, unless it's extended by council after a public hearing. But that PD would have to be reasonably consistent with the PD concept plan that was submitted as petition 2021-03 AZPD on November 29th of 2021, as modified and presented to council tonight, which they will do so in their presentation. So ultimately, the request is for a comp plan amendment that would state that the commercial uses within the MORC category shall not include big box retail, drive-through establishments of any kind, except that 2 drive-through establishments with a cumulative interior square footage shall not exceed 10,000 square feet may be allowed on the west 500 feet of Lot 1, but also prohibit gasoline stations with or without convenience stores or industrial uses. The additional section is that the exception of drive-through establishments on Lot 1 shall sunset and revert back to a prohibited use if a PD amendment which is not reasonably consistent with the PD concept plan submitted on November 29th as modified and presented to council on February 28th, 2022 is not approved by March 1st of 2024, giving them 2 years to get that PD through the process and council approval. However, council may extend the March 1st date after a public hearing at their discretion. So, staff recommends the council adopt the proposed ordinance. The applicant is here with a little bit, a more detailed presentation on what this PD concept plan entails. And with that, I will call up, is it Mickey doing the presentation? All right. I'm not sure what part you want versus what Jonathan's going to want.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Mickey Breinstaff. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Schutz & Bowen, 300 South Orange Avenue, Suite 1600, Orlando, Florida, here on behalf of the applicant. As you all know, we've had a number of hearings on this topic, and we've listened to you, we've listened to the residents, we understand the concerns. We're trying very hard since the February 14th meeting to address the Commission's concern of potential bait and switch, which is a legitimate concern that we want to address, which we think we have addressed with this condition, while trying to balance the applicant's rights, current existing rights, to proceed with the Poloni plan, so that the Poloni plan option will continue to exist until such time as a new PD is formally approved. So the language that we have proposed, and you saw on the screen at the bottom, we think does that. It balances everyone's interest. It protects your interests. By doing so, we not only make reference to the original PD application that was submitted, we make reference to the materials, the amendments and the revisions there too that you're going to see tonight, and we put in the record, so it's not only the original submittal, but it includes the submittal of February 28, 2022, which is what you're about to see. We are very confident that what you're about to see is a far superior plan to the Poloni plan, and especially in light of the city's concern and many members of the city's concern about the parking lot and the out front of the buildings, and trying to screen some of the parking and add landscaping and add pedestrian trails, etc. John's going to go through a comparison, literally a page by page almost comparison of the two plans. We think it's superior. We hope you'll agree with us, and we hope you'll support us and approve this comp plan amendment. Thank you. John Martin.
Thank you. Jonathan Martin with Kinley Horn Associates. I don't see So this is the Poloni plan that was originally kind of thought out, and what we wanted to go through today is really to show the difference between the two plans, being the Poloni plan and the proposed plan that we have in front of you. And we focus on primarily access, pedestrian connectivity, the amount of green space, and just the location of the buildings. We talked about trying to pull the buildings forward and activate the project. So this kind of is the holistic plan that we have going right now. This plan, as we presented now, actually includes a lot of comments that were provided at the planning and zoning meeting, and also working with staff, and also listening to you guys over meetings, and actually over the last couple meetings. So starting out with the vehicular access that was in the approved Poloni plan, there were 8 proposed driveways with the Poloni plan, and 5 main vehicular, and then 3 service accesses. So in our plan now, we're actually reduced that to 5. One actually pretty consistent with the original planning plan, except for the removal of all the service corridors. So that was an important component to kind of control traffic, how traffic enters and exits the site, to afford proper pedestrian and internal circulation. The second thing we wanted to look at was the pedestrian connectivity. And in the original Poloni plan, there were a total of 7 connections to the project, to the perimeter PD, as well as along Maitland Boulevard. And we greatly enhanced this. We're actually doing 8 now. But as you'll see in the next exhibits, the biggest difference is we've almost doubled the walkability and the amount of sidewalks that are on site. Primarily, there was a sidewalk along the frontage, and then we had the 2 sidewalks on the eastern and western flank, and then you could walk across the linear frontage of the project with a couple connections in the back. And a total of about 1,350 of linear sidewalks in this project, with a large field of parking in front and the building setback that we talked about. So as we went forward with the new plan, like I said, we almost doubled the amount of sidewalks. Specifically, the DOT 8-foot pedestrian corridor. Even since the last submittal, we've added this pedestrian connection that we felt was kind of missing. So we added a pedestrian connection on the east side, and then again we have our major points of pedestrian connection to the apartment complex. And again, just the amount of internal connectivity. A couple of things that we did, listening to the P&Z as well as staff. As we move forward into reviewing the PD with staff, and this plan will be the plan that we submitted, one of the focusing points was actually, let's do an embellished respite area in the middle of the project. If you kind of remember, we kind of had it in a smaller area, and we actually embellished this and made it a much larger green area. One comment came up too is that we had a a vehicular corridor with parking on both sides. And one of the comments that came up, man, why can't we activate either ends of the building and maybe do like farmer's market or something in that area? So adding the kind of plaza, let's call it a park. This is kind of just a concept plan. We're still working on actually when we go in there. But the goal was to really activate both ends of this building. And again, having great pedestrian access all the way through and up and then either over to Lot 2 and the rest of the project or to the residential areas, the Lake Faith, as well as the area to our rear. One of the things that we greatly enhanced by about 50% is we actually increased the green space on this project now. It's less impervious than what was originally proposed with the Poloni plan. And a lot of that goes to just the placement of the buildings and the large parking field up front being broken down and reduced. Kind of wanted to focus on those 2 focal points that we talked about, is having that the little respite area, in case of storms or whatever, if you're out walking about, that there's a respite area over here, and then again the actual plaza / park that we talked about. So we feel these things are embellishments even from what we originally submitted in November as part of the PD review. And that's an important part, is that we submitted these plans concurrently, and depending on what happens tonight, staff will then take the step of reviewing those PD plans and getting it to the next level. One comment that came out last time, and I really just want to show these real quick, is city code requires 4 spaces from the order box to the pickup window, and they require 4 spaces behind. This is city land development code. This is what y'all have said the industry standard should be for Maitland. This is kind of showing really an off the charts kind of scenario, but we want to just show, before we even got back into Trelago, we provide almost 30 cars, which is 4 times the city code requirement, 4 times. So the city requires 4 in front and 4 in back, and we have almost the ability to stack 30 cars before it even gets into Trelago. Again, when we looked at the pedestrian connectivity and the way we nestled the Starbucks or a future coffee shop in this corner was to make sure the pedestrian core and activities could happen without any interference with cars. Even coming through here, they can get to the store. And one important part that's in the code also is that it's very clear that drive-throughs and stacking should not impact the walkability and you can't include any spaces, as we go back to this exhibit, you're not allowed to include any spaces where there's people, pedestrians. So we could probably snuck another car in here if we wanted to, but we wanted to be fair to make sure that the pedestrian corridors remain clear. As well as the other plan, we wanted to show just the 4 in front of the order window, the 4 in the back, fits nicely within here, but the reality is that we could stack the world inside the site. I mean, it won't even come ever close to this, but we wanted to actually just demonstrate how well thought out the site plan was in the perspective that that we have in the project going into this to make sure it's walkable. How can we improve on the plan? It's interesting, when I went back and I was reading some of the notes from the original PD submittals of how there was a lot of favorable input on, hey, let's pull the buildings forward. How can we activate it? The sea of parking out front and how sparse that this plan was, from an inviting perspective of the vehicles on Maitland Boulevard. And let's talk about traffic. Maitland Boulevard is a 6-lane facility, and a lot of work went into DOT through PD&Es and everything about what the density in the area, what's the build out, and it's going to be 6 lanes. The traffic that's out there is out there. We showed in the presentation that we did in January that actually, as this project's developed, the traffic intensity has been reduced over the life of this project, almost by about half. So going in here with this program, we feel it has absolutely zero impact on Maitland Boulevard. This is what was thought out. And again, by limiting to 10,000 square foot of drive-through, compared to the 150,000 total commercial availability, it's a very small percentage. And again, in the traffic studies, we made very clear that this is a customary amount and that it has no impact on traffic. One thing that, let's go to here, I wanted to show this one. I wanted to show this plan, this is the plan that was submitted on November 29th. And a couple things that I wanted to show was we removed the drive-through discussion. This is kind of where we had the gazebo in the middle with connectivity, and if we go back, but we greatly enhanced this green area around the gazebo and made it feel a lot more comfortable. We just felt, man, if you were with your kids and you wanted to stop and sit there and have ice cream, it just felt too close to the roadway networks, and that was something that came out of P&Z as well as a meeting with staff. And then again, activating this area and creating a plaza. So this really ends up functioning as one larger building with the ability of the plaza. And we again added sidewalks along the eastern front to enhance access for Lake Villas and that side of the project. One thing that, as we went through the meetings early on and listening to residents and concerns, a lot of things that Mickey elaborated in this condition we feel really solidifies the project. We tried to listen to all the concerns, and getting into really the biggest thing is this: we're working on these architectural plans, so we just wanted to give you a flavor of what we feel these buildings are going to be, and as we partner through with staff as we go through the PD process and ultimately designs, we feel that this is going to be a crown jewel of Maitland when it's done. If you look at the Trade Lago, the apartments, you look at the Grove, I know some of you were able to come out to the grand opening that occurred Monday, but we believe in this project. Alan is a great developer. He's going to make sure this is first class, and I think that everything we've done so far is to improve on that. But and this is the larger building, of course, that's located. But we really feel we listened to all your concerns, and we've got a great project on our hands. So we're happy to answer any questions, and depending on public input, we'd be happy to come back and address any other concerns.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warner. I have a couple questions. So all the changes that this is the first time we're seeing them, right? I mean, the ones that you were just, went through there. All those changes, pulling the buildings forward and creating more space, more green space, et cetera. I mean, those, absent the presence of drive-throughs, would improve the development, right?
There are some things about that when you look at the project the way it was and the time it takes to get through a PD process and everything, it's a set of metrics that goes into a plan and how it's done and stuff like that. But there are parts of this that are, it's far superior from a pedestrian circulation. A lot of this plan was thought out on the basis of having drive-throughs. So I would say that I would not have came up with this plan if we were not forward thinking of how drive-throughs would operate and how they would be integrated and developed. So I probably would have come up with a different concept if drive-throughs were not were not part of the project.
So you would come up with something different than the Bologna plan if we hadn't been dealing with drive-throughs?
Well, the Ploney plan was something that a lot of it is based on developers' comfort, and I worked with the Ploneys for many years. That was a product they're comfortable with. They've been successful. And Mr. Sharon said he can make that plan very successful also. We just felt that listening through the years that we could make it a little better. But again, the whole principle of this was how to integrate drive-throughs into this to make it functional from a long-term perspective for the community.
Okay. And you increased the green space?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought I heard you say that you couldn't do that because of the irrigation requirements.
No, I'm not happy about it. I'd rather have more paving, but functionally, all the parking that we did, some things that we did too was against, some of the things that we're going to be looking at is all the parking. Now, when you have all the parking in the front core, what we did here is all the perimeter parking, we're going to take 2 foot of asphalt off to increase the green belts all around the perimeter of the project. So some of this was just based on the design that we've been able to be a little more innovative with stormwater. The impervious area that's generated on the project that runs into the pond, that's what we use for irrigation. So again, I want to maximize that to the extent possible, but in this case, it's a value add because the owner doesn't need to pay additional pavings, but as well as not having all the parking being up front, it actually reduces the need for impervious area in the project.
Okay. So I just want to make the point again, though, that I wanted to get from you was, if you did not have drive-throughs, I know you kind of teed this up because of you drew this around drive-throughs, but these are standards that are now common in the industry. I imagine that you're kind of losing the scene of parking out front, one building's closer to the road, and hiding some of that parking.
It's really developer-driven, and I think Alan had a vision to do something different here. But like I said, I've got developers that would have been happy with the strip center as well.
Right, but that's not our goal. So also, one of the things that you mentioned, that the plaza in the middle, I guess, that you were thinking perhaps about farmers markets, et cetera. But it really is right up against the drive-through, right? Isn't that a drive-through lane that it's trying to get?
Correct.
Do you see no conflict with the farmers market and the drive-through? It's really just meant to turn traffic?
No, not at all. I mean, like I said, we exceed, just based on what is allowed, we exceed city land development code now with just what's here, not even talking about any stacking within the, and we place it purposely, that the exit for the drive-through is on the west side of the building. So, there could be a plaza out there, some appropriate landscaping, and as you can see, we added additional landscaping on those 4 parking spots on the west side to make sure that, we can screen it and buffer it appropriately. And again, it'd be more forward-thinking, focused towards Maitland Boulevard with some knee walls or whatever. I mean, we haven't finished the plaza design, but no, I'm completely comfortable that we can pull this off.
Okay. I had thought that it was kind of a fundamental concept of pedestrian-friendly development that you don't want to have conflicts with traffic. So I guess is that not the case?
Well, there's no conflict with pedestrians. We have pedestrians accessing the plaza west or east of the drive-through areas. We've got clear front walkability from the beginning to end. And then again, people do pause. There's probably 30 seconds to a minute time at the drive-through, which provides more than ample gaps for the folks to walk in front of this area from going from building to building. So people are coming in. Don't forget, this is the back of house, these buildings. I mean, you're going to have deliveries, trucks. You're going to have, this is kind of all back of the house. So again, we're going to heavily screen this area because this is where all the drop-off, the deliveries, getting into the pedestrian access really to these is back doors for the businesses to get a product into their building. So this is truly a back of house area. And again, focusing this more towards the front, but the pedestrian connectivity across the front is what's critical. And then this is a loading area to access the rear of this building. So no, there's zero access conflict between pedestrians and vehicles here.
Okay. All right. And I have to say I'm a little bit distressed that we've been at this since September at least, and you all have been at least. And this is really the first time we're seeing this, and we're asked to make a decision about this, really just on PowerPoint that you're presenting to us.
Well, this is the plan that we submitted in November, and I know it takes time to get through these public hearings and processes. But you can see that largely the plan has been consistent, and everything we've done is try to enhance or embellish or make it better. So this is the plan that actually staff will be reviewing once decisions made tonight, whether they proceed to review it and they provide comments. And this is the plan that'll come back to you for implementation as part of the PD. So
This plan hasn't changed since you first came in?
What's that?
So this plan has not changed then since you first came in?
Well, we removed the drive-through per y'all's request,
Right.
and we added the plaza, and we increased the gazebo landscaping area, and we added pedestrians. So we've enhanced it, but no, I mean, I would say the bones of this are very identical to the original, or to the submittal that, or to the proposed changes right now. It's very consistent.
Right, so we're kind of back where we were. That's fine. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, so, the coffee shop, that would basically be an attraction for westbound traffic on Maitland Boulevard during morning rush hour. So that's kind of, so it wouldn't create more traffic. Nobody's gonna get on Maitland Boulevard at rush hour to go to Starbucks and go home. So would the act of pulling off Maitland Boulevard and turning into Tree Lago Way, and then if you could show me, they would be going down Maitland Boulevard, and then they would get me a cup of coffee, and then
And they come back.
so, and then I go out.
Right, and you could go out any of the access
Right,
points.
so, but that's the way, that's the path that people would follow. So, would that cause any sort of backup on Maitland Boulevard or any impediment on Maitland Boulevard, or is that right turn lane and the space allocated once you turn right on Tree Lago Way, does that, so would there be an impact on Maitland Boulevard?
No, there's zero impact on Maitland Boulevard. The right turn lane, again, was designed for the build out of the project, which this traffic, even the commercial part that we proposed is more than substantial. I probably would, if I came here, and I was gonna go westbound, I probably would cut through and go to Concourse, you know, and take the nice drive around the lake and stuff like that now, and you'd be able to skip one whole light cycle is what I probably would do. But don't forget you have this as well as Concourse to leave out, and both will be signalized. I think
Right.
that's the important part of
And then pretty much, and you can see that at any Starbucks, after the morning rush hour, you'll generally have 2 or 3 cars. It's no longer an issue. So the entrance to Lake Faith is about a quarter mile upstream, I guess is what you would say.
correct.
So would there be any impact at all, a quarter mile upstream from people doing that loop and then going and continuing west?
You mean if they came in and got it and they would come back here?
No, they came in and got it and either went out Tree Log or went out your route.
They have freedom to go wherever they want, but because you're looking
Yeah,
at
I think you're missing. So I got my coffee and I'm going west. So what I'm trying to see is how could there be any impact on traffic a quarter mile upstream?
there'd be no reason to go back east to go back west, right?
Right.
So you wouldn't come back here to make a right. So either you're going to make a left here, go out, make a left and make a right on Maitland Boulevard, or you're going to go all the way out to Concourse. If you did, for some reason, let's say you're dropping your kids off at the school, you got your coffee or whatever, or maybe you wanted to come, maybe you were making a left and you got your coffee, but you would take the right. This is a restricted access. You're not able to make a left out of here. It's only right in, right out, and then you've got the directional, this directional in is permissibly.
So on this site, and at least as far as the Starbucks is concerned, we're looking at maybe a 2-hour window, maybe 7 to 9 or whatever, where you would have people coming off Maitland Boulevard doing their circuit and then continuing west. We'd probably have a lot of. Okay, so now just orient the second drive-through.
So yeah, so here's the order window, and then you have the folks staging to pick up their food, and then this is the 5 cars before the order, from the order window back.
But that's the restaurant, right? The
Yes.
second restaurant.
Correct. So a couple of these end caps, depends on, if it's more like a sit down, it just depends on what restaurant comes in, But some, like, it could be the entire building, I guess, if you got like maybe a pastry company that everybody's familiar with that starts with a P, something like that. It could be the whole thing. But if you end up seeing a couple of end cap spaces, so the actual drive-through restaurant itself could be here, maybe it could be the whole building, but
So you don't know what type of restaurant the second one will be?
Or the first.
no. As we get through, it's difficult. We're trading paper with companies, but it's very difficult for them to commit to anything until we have the use allowed and it's proposed. So
Okay, since I'm a liberal arts major, could you show me how a car would drive in and get
So if
there?
you're coming down, you make a right,
Right.
and you come through here, and you come around back, and then you access. You could also go up and then around and through. Or this one would be a forbidden movement. They wouldn't be able to make that turn. So you'd have to go around, and then, like I said, you'd stack in the back of the house of that building is where people would be kind of ingressing to get into that drive-through. So in this area, they could, I guess, for instance, if you're coming from the apartment complex, you probably would come this way, or you would come with the Lake Big Village resident would probably come this way, and then into the drive-through.
Is the comparative sidewalks with the planning plan in this plan? So that's this plan, and the planning plan is there.
It's really
So with that plan, is there a walking corridor from people from the condos and people from the apartments?
You had the ability, this plan didn't show every pedestrian connection, but just from a perspective, you would have came over and came through here, and we kind of show that here, is what we, just looking. You'd have, you would have had a connection back here, you'd have a connection off Maitland Boulevard to get in, there probably would have been a sidewalk here, and then you'd have a connection here, and then you'd have one across, and then you'd have one here, and then here to get into the site. So it's more around the perimeter, though. If there's not much connectivity in the site itself, and folks mostly would be walking just straight along the building frontage. This plan, a lot more. You're going to see a lot more pedestrian activity. You're going to see a lot more activity in front of the buildings, and it's going to be a much more inviting plan.
Okay, that's it for now.
Okay, a few questions for you. First of all, back to pedestrian connection. Can you elaborate on what that's going to look like and what that's going to mean for the residents who are coming out of Lake Bay? How big is the sidewalk going to be? What kind of greenery is there going to be around there? Can you paint me a picture, please?
Sure. So that was something that we, even from the last meeting that we went back and looked at, but you've got the 8-foot sidewalk along DOT, which is a very substantial sidewalk, and the sidewalks on site will probably be 6-foot sidewalks. We added this connection solely for Lake Bay Villas. They would, like, for instance, if they just wanted to go to Maitland Boulevard and maybe walk down to the lake or maybe visit somebody at the Grove, they now would be able to exit, cross here, and be able to take the sidewalk all the way out, or maybe they're even walking their kids out to the bus stop. One thing that we did here last time was, hopefully the bus stop gets moved internally now, the signal's going in operational and get it off Maitland Boulevard, but that's a discussion for the school board separately. But, so that would be, and then if you're anywhere in the residential, you've got multiple connection points to access the site, the project, either if you're gonna go over here, or if you're gonna walk and get a, coffee and then go back to the pool or whatever, you've got these connections. The interesting thing about this is that you could come and do a loop, and then do an internal loop, and then you could make this a little walking course if you wanted to go get your coffee and kind of walk around without having to get too far away from your home.
And are we envisioning that there's going to be shrubbery along that walkway, or is it going to be trees to create shade?
Absolutely, no. There'll be lots of trees, and appropriate, a lot of the landscaping criteria, it's either defers to LDC or things that were specifically called out in the PD. We're not really proposing anything, but you guys can see how the grove turned out, and it's going to be a nice lush landscape place that you'll be proud of.
Next question is on electric vehicle parking. I know that under the new LDC, there's going to be an expansion for the required number of electric vehicle charging spots. Since this plan will theoretically come under that once we approve it, can you elaborate further on where those spots are going to be, how they're going to be spread out, and I know that there's also a requirement to have connections for future spots to be included as well.
Correct. We've seen where we are plumbing things out even more than what maybe you guys think should be mandated to see how successful it is and have the ability to expand that network. The lot 2 is installing some, and our owner developer is definitely interested in installing some. The one thing that we were kind of talking is where exactly, once the staff reviews the PD and the PD plan, we probably would pick the right places for them. It's almost like an informational thing, like we could teach about EV, even solar and things like that from an informational perspective. But they would be scattered about, and the exact number, like I said, a lot of times now, let's say you require 4, we probably would have 1, maybe at Starbucks, 2 here or something. But we would probably plumb out for more, just because as we get there, the ability to help patrons get energy for their vehicles would be an important factor down the road.
And last question involves that second drive-through, which is building 4. I know that under our previous discussions and the concessions made at the last meeting, that the drive-throughs would be within 500 feet of Trelago Way. I am very surprised to see that second drive-through sitting smack dab in the middle of the property. So my question is, if that second drive-through is going in there, is that going to be I would hope that we are expecting that contemplated use would be a restaurant where the drive-through is a secondary amenity and not a primary amenity. If you're talking about a bakery which serves sandwiches that starts with the letter P, I've seen those drive-throughs, and that circulation route does concern me. I don't think that it's the most optimum way to get traffic in and out. I assume building 1 would be the other location, so that you really are driving all of the traffic right up against Trelago Way so that you're getting it in and getting it out quickly. I assumed that it would look similar to the building 2 configuration, which makes perfect sense to me, and I've seen that in use, and there's lots of room for circulation there because you are going around the building. I'm concerned about the building 4, and as you drew it up for Councilmember Thomas, you've got somebody who's going around 2 sets of buildings. They're crossing apart in front of the apartments, so if there are kids in the morning that are crossing over to get to school buses, there's pedestrians who are walking over to get their coffee. There's a lot of opportunities there because you're forcing the traffic to go 3/4 of the way around the top of the plaza to get in to queue up to get their bagel and coffee. I have concerns about the placement. So can you allay my concerns, or can you give me an explanation as to why it was put in building 4 as opposed to building 1?
Sure. So the 500-foot limit is somewhere like right in here, so we made sure that it is on the west 500 foot of the property. When we looked at this plan and looked at activating the front, a lot of the details, and we're pulling the details forward just because of some of the concerns that we heard last time. But this plan is one, and that's why even the words that are being used in the condition is that we haven't really had a chance, staff hasn't had a chance to review this. These are the exact things that we would go through with you during the PD, and we would get you comfortable. Just like as we're incrementally modifying the site, hearing that for the first time, it's something that we would take to heart, and we would figure out a partnership with staff to figure out exactly how it would work. I think the important part is that there is zero, no matter how successful that restaurant is, impact that it's going to have any other impact than to this developer's project. And obviously, if it became a bottleneck, it would hurt the project. There's no way for it to back up onto Lake Faith entrance.
It's not about the backing up at this point. It's not about queuing out on Maitland Boulevard. It's about asking, can you do the drive again for me, please? You're off Maitland Boulevard.
They come in.
They come in, and So they're either going all the way around there, or as you pointed out, the second alternative is they have to go up to the top of Trelawney Way.
As a simple revision, we could add another drive-through cut here, and actually add islands, maybe park this, and we could add another drive-through cut right here, so they don't have to go down so far. But that would be something that I would propose then. So you'd be able to go around here and come straight through here and access. Then, if I would add, for instance, this feature, I would duplicate here if that's a concern, that they have the ability to go right in then.
I mean, I know that this is preliminary, we're not in PD, this is not final negotiations, this is just your opportunity to give us your idea of what you would like this to look like. And up until now, a lot of these things sound really great, but it's very problematic to me that your good idea is that the traffic is going to go up and impact the apartments and then come around as not, well, yeah, that's what you showed.
The reality is that they would probably cut through the parking spaces, because those are going to be very low volume use probably for the back of house of the thing. So the reality is the car probably would just cut through anyways, but we could structurally put some landscaping and give them a directed path also. So that would be something that we'd be happy to do.
Why can't it go where building 1 is?
We kind of talked about that in some of the negotiations with the tenants and stuff like that, and that's kind of this is kind of the results of those discussions.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
I just to follow up when we think about having the drive-ins 500 feet, in the way you almost think of having the impact 500 feet. So if you create the buildings are 500 feet, but then the traffic that services that drive-through goes 1,000 feet, that kind of, and I don't know if there's an engineering design that you can fit all that within 500 feet. So it's just
Well written.
I think part of, I hear your comments and John, your comment about this is the first time we're seeing this. It is posing a little bit of problems just from the ability to kind of review it. And but that being said, I appreciate that differences, I don't want to say accommodations, but suggestions were heard, and so the plan was approved. And so you don't want to criticize for changing and making things better, but it is difficult for us because this is the first time we're seeing this. So to analyze it, and then also it is challenging because we are, and I appreciate also what you're doing here to sort of introduce the PD plan and say, hey, this is what the PD plan that we will come back with in the future will look like. But you're not running the two concurrently, so it's really not fully vetted, and it hasn't been gone through staff review. So there isn't a review as to whether or not that traffic pattern works and whether or not is that where everything should line up. So it's an awkward. It is a little bit of an awkward situation because you're, again, I don't want to criticize the ability to, or the willingness to make changes on the go, but as from a decision-making standpoint, it's harder for us, one, to look at it and not have reviewed it, not talk to staff about it, and whether or not these things are kind of what staff would like to see in this overall project. So I think John's comment about how this is sort of now coming to us is valid. That being said, there is, I think, overall, when you look at the two projects, I think our evaluation is whether or not the project that's on the books is better or worse, and is this an improvement over the existing plan? And are the enhancements with green space, walkability, all of that, are those overall making this a better project for the community as a whole and the neighborhood that it surrounds? So I think those are the challenges, but it is a bit, like I said, awkward to review this on the fly. So
We submitted back in November, and staff's, we talked about it, but I think that like things that have even come into the condition now. So I guess it was just the decision was that we need closure on the comp plan issue before they could review the PD. And we've been 3 months, it's been in staff's hands, so it's not that we wouldn't have advanced it if we could.
I didn't hear that last part. You would what?
Well, we would like to advance it, but staff needed input on how they can review the PD itself. So that's kind of where it was, let's get the comp plan approval, then they can review the plan based on the criteria that's allowed.
Could I ask the lawyers over there to define reasonably consistent and what rights that gives us?
Why don't you ask me an easy question? Well, look, the reality is, and I kind of figured someone would pick up on reasonably. And the answer is, this is what lawyers make money debating. That's I know that sounds like a smart, answer, but it's also
a reasonable answer.
It is what is true. What I think is, in terms of trying to explain it, the other lawyer answer that you get is, it's whatever the judge says it is. In terms of the parameters on that, the best way I would tell you, judging from the seats that you were in, is how closely does the plan that's being presented at the time, some future time, assuming this were to go forward, resemble the one that you're seeing here tonight? And then it's up to your judgment. And I do believe that a court would take into consideration your judgment as the elected officials about the reasonableness of it. It doesn't mean that he or she doesn't get to have their own view, but one of the things about reviewing a decision that is legislative in nature, or later on one that might be quasi-judicial in nature, is whether there was competent substantial evidence to support it. And so if your view was that what they show in the future is not reasonably the same, and you can articulate why. They've changed the parking configuration, they've changed the traffic flow, they've moved the drive-in from point A to point B, and you can articulate that. That is what the judge, he or she will probably go with, because they're typically reticent to substitute their own judgment for that of the elected officials. So that's the best answer I can give you.
So, for example, if they came back and they still had the drive-through on the second one going up through 2/3 of the project and moving back down, and we decided we didn't like that, is that?
Well, if this is the plan that you say they have to be closely reasonable to, and then they move it to
So
city.
if we want them.
Yeah, yes. But if they don't move it, that would be a more difficult ask unless there's some aspect. So you really are having to judge it now based on what you're seeing here. But if they said, geez, I counted at least 3 voices that indicated that we should move that, and then they don't, then that would be surprising to me given the circumstances. But from a legal standpoint, you need to articulate something else perhaps to meet the is not reasonably the same.
We said like we wanted all drive-through traffic contained on the western 500 feet of the project.
Again, this is their application, so that's what you have to look at. But to your point, making those comments and then seeing something different in terms of traffic flow or something else that you can articulate, then you have some room. But if they take this plan, and this happens to go through the process of DRC and plannings, and nothing gets changed when it's brought here, then the articulation that you'll have to come up with is, okay, how is it not reasonably the same if it's the same plan?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming that going through some of those iterations, things will change, but I don't know that.
One of the things that I think some of our concerns here have been whether or not how this impacts the Lake Bay villas and access points. I think the potential drive-throughs coming in and out. And I think to your point, Linda, I think that my concern about the current placement of that one drive-through in the middle is that going eastbound, going westbound, I'm sorry, you're going to find that it's more convenient to come in that first entrance other than follow what is a fairly serpentine route to stack up in that one drive-through. So I think that would be something that we would want to look at. I think that was one of you're wanting to, somebody's wanting to see that illustration. I guess somebody was, whoever it was that was having you draw that route. It seems, I would just want to take the pressure off of that first entrance point and make sure that, like you said, people can go wherever they want, but you can design a project to hopefully direct it where it should go, and what would be the best path. I think it would be designed to keep all that traffic who's accessing the development to come in off the signalized intersection that's there. So, again, we're just sort of looking at this now. I don't know, Dan, if you've got input on that, we can ask you later, but that would be my question on it. If we had seen this 2 weeks ago, that would have been my question to staff.
You have any questions, Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, John, so, the residents of Lake Fayetteville has come out, they have to come out through that northern part, cut down, go south, and then go west on either the frontage road or the sidewalk through the project, correct?
You mean as far as like vehicular for them?
No, I'm sorry, walkability wise.
Yeah.
If they wanted to go to the grocery store, how would I get to the grocery store?
Correct. So they could either walk all the way through, and I'm not sure exactly how the route would get to get over to here through here. But we afforded, I mean, obviously this is our property line, but we made it so now we can be as close as possible. We're not able to go into that area that's owned by the apartment complexes.
But I mean, there's no sidewalk on that northern part.
There's no sidewalk here now, correct?
No, but is there a sidewalk
Yeah,
going
there's a
from
sidewalk.
there
There's a
to
sidewalk
the
here.
west?
There's a sidewalk here.
That goes all the way to the grocery store so they can walk
It does,
carefully?
yeah, it does.
Oh, they gotta go up, around, okay.
It looks like I'm just pulling up an area, it looks like there's a sidewalk break there.
Yeah. So and what's nice going last is, thank you guys, I've heard y'all's concerns and I agree with them. And they're my concerns also. Question, if with that drive-through in the middle, I'm gonna have to go now past, so we're in the 250-foot area from Lake Fayetteville as the cars would come in, come down, and then cut back to go to the drive-through, whatever it is. Or my option is go to the first cut through, which ingress, but then that's where you're stacking it. So I wouldn't do that if I was driving. I'd go up to the next one, cut through that, come down, cut across, and then go down. So I'm just looking at the drivability of it is a kind of concern. And also, I know it's not a concern going on to Maitland, I mean, when you're on Maitland, but Trade Lago, if I'm going east or west, especially early in the morning of whatever coffee company this is that you're bringing in, or whatever sandwich company that starts with a P is, but if I'm going east or west, then are we have any concerns, since this was a degrade on the traffic study, are we having any concerns about the stacking going onto Maitland Boulevard?
No, 100%. There's no issues at all anywhere off the property if any stacking would ever occur. Again, if you did come to this drive-through and you would exit here if you were going to go westbound. And even if you were going to go eastbound, you would still come out to this entrance and then make the left and go. There's no reason for anybody from the drive-throughs or any of the businesses, for that matter, to egress out the Lake Fayetteville's entrance. There's no reason for that at all to backtrack to go back west, because you're forbidden the left move.
Yeah, because I'm just looking, because on my egress, I can't egress from that building 1 part. I have to egress from building 2, north part of building 2, to take a left, correct?
Correct. You would come out here, you would make a left, and then a left, and then a left, and you would come out and make a left.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would do it. Or, like I said, if the traffic, when you're out there in the morning, the gaps are, once the signal's operation, you'll see more gaps here, but you'll have cars, right now cars are stacked up fully, but you'll have gaps here, and there'll be cars stacked up all the way, this area will be stacked up, and I would probably exit, if I'm going westbound, I would go down the concourse and take a right by the Grove. I probably wouldn't even touch the signal if it was me, once you get to know it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's open up the public hearing. So if anybody has a comment, we're going to take it from this podium over here. And if when you come up, please clearly state your name and your address so the city clerk can write that down for the minutes. We're ready to go.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Jody Bowman. I reside at 369 West Lake Faith Drive, Maitland, Florida. I come again before you. Some of the same concerns and thoughts. You know, I'm pretty perplexed right about now. I don't do what you guys do, obviously. I had ideas one time that I thought maybe I would like to do that, but that's a pretty thankless job what you guys do. But I've got to be real honest with you. I don't think there's a no-win. You try to, what I'm observing tonight, and I have for the past several meetings, is that we're trying to appease the developer, trying to make him happy. You got to try to make everybody happy. I suppose I come back to my thought process about, you know, we are the city of Maitland. It's almost we against us, or we against them, and I'm just perplexed and confused with that. I mean, I've watched the council here spend. This is time. This is your time. You can be home with your families. You can be home, do anything. You know, racquetball. You can do anything. But you're here. It's almost like a dog and pony show is the way I see it. I've been in business my entire life, and I have never quite witnessed any type of negotiating or such as what's going on here tonight. You know, to me, it's business 101. They come in here, the developer, months ago. Well, first of all, when they bought the property, they knew what they knew what they were up against. No drive-throughs, okay? Well, they continue to, in my opinion, shove it down our throats. And they had the audacity and the disrespect to come in and to continue to say, no, won't three. They're not hearing, not three. Well, last meeting, they wanted to congregate, like, it was a 3-hour meeting or a meeting before last. But let's have an idea. Let's go back to the back corner. Let's huddle. Let's rethink this thing through. This is a multi-million-dollar project. All that thing should have been done days, weeks, and months ahead of time. They've got some pretty heavy hitters on their payroll, it appears to me. And it's just, they're not listening. They say they are. They want to say all the right things, but are they doing the right things? You know, the questions y'all presented earlier, you know, this is like an obstacle course to get in and out of that place. They talked about 5 entrances. I hope and wish that you council members would have been on that property, watched the traffic during high peak hours, and I'm going to tell you something, it's not practical or feasible. You can present numbers any way you want to, and again, I'm going to tell you this is a fact, not an opinion. I've been in business my entire life, successful business, and I'm going to tell you something, you can present and twist anything you want to twist it on. You watch, anyway, a couple things. Traffic grade is a grade D. Is that good? I don't think so. The P&Z, I went through P&Z. You guys, with all respect to the world, have a planning and zoning committee in place for a reason. These guys are well-educated ladies. They're well-educated people to do what they do. We're not listening to them. We don't even, they voted it down 4-1, not 3-2, 4-1. Pretty strong from the P&Z. I don't understand why we're working so hard to get up. I just don't understand unless the developer knows something or someone that we don't know while they're continuing to be persistent. I go back to Business 101. They know we didn't want those drive-throughs. 6 years ago, the city of Maitland said no drive-throughs. Well, here today, we're just kidding, citizens. We really, the word integrity comes to my mind, integrity. We all would like to think that, you have integrity. I think if we ask everyone on the council, well, absolutely I have integrity. Well, what happened just 6 years ago when we said, hey, citizens of Maitland, you don't have to worry about drive-throughs. We're going to protect your city here. We're going to protect it. Well, just kidding. We're really not going to. We're just looking at what's in the best interest possibly of the developer. And again, I don't know why. So Business 101 comes back. We're asking for 3. Man, if I'm the developer, I want 3. And they persistent on 3. But if I get 1, it's a victory. It's a victory. We got 1 because we had none to start with. So I'm confused on that.
Mr. Bowman, I think the time is up for it's a 3-minute time. Everybody gets 3 minutes just so we can respect everybody's time.
Sure.
A lot of people want to speak tonight. So I appreciate
Thanks.
appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Leave the turn.
Yes.
Hey, good evening. My name is Doug Weiner. I live at 1850 Geronimo Trail in Dominic Estates.
I'm a native of Orange County, and I've lived in Maitland for 20 years. And I'm here to provide support for the change in ordinance. 6 years ago, we didn't have COVID. 6 years ago, we were not spread out across the room wearing masks. Things have changed. Restaurants and retailers and economic needs of developers have changed. I think this is a thoughtful site plan. I do think that some of the entry points to the second drive-through can be adjusted to make it a little more efficient internally. But my kids played sports on the West Side Sports Complex, and there's simply nothing to eat or there's no services to support the community. I am a Maitland resident. I see a lot of NIMBYism, and I think this is a quality development. The developer is local to Central Florida. He's a UCF grad. He's in their Hall of Fame. He's highly regarded. He implements well, and I think he's made a lot of concessions here. The floating plan is literally a strip. It's unattractive. What he's done is provided great programming for the community, and I think there was a lot of objection before the apartments were built. Anything else? I mean, we all loved Citrus. Citrus is no longer in Orlando. The majority of the traffic being generated on Maitland Boulevard is coming from the east. They continue to build houses east of us. They jump the Econ. Chiliota is suburban, and that traffic isn't stopping, and it's not generally developed in Maitland. So, without anything else, I just came here to provide my support. I look forward to shopping at this center, and I certainly hope that there is a couple drive-throughs to help support the economic benefit of the developer and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner.
Hi, my name is Lynn Rigney. I live at 221 West Lake Bay. I just want to talk about being 77 years old, an excellent driver, but basically the traffic on Maitland Boulevard has made us gasp to try to get out of our driveway, get 3 lanes over, to get a left turn, to go back to Maitland Avenue where we go to the post office and the Senior Citizen Center. When I go to the 3rd lane and I want to go back, all this traffic is coming eastbound. You wait sometimes 3 minutes. Then somebody pulls out of Trilago and they pull their car in front of you and you can't see the traffic coming from the east. Then the medical complex across the street has somebody coming out, and you don't know when you can go. There has already been a fatal accident going out of our driveway. It is a nightmare. Yesterday I went to pull out of our driveway and somebody got in the left lane going east and made a U-turn. So I'm looking this way, I'm clearing it, and then a U-turn goes right in front of me. The traffic is impossible. And then we're starting a shopping center. Forget the drive-through. What is the point? What is the point? Is it for the people in the apartments to have something to eat? Or is it another place for crowds to come? It's already a nightmare. If you ask your police department, they'll say that traffic is a nightmare. I'm finished. Okay? Thank you. Think about that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rigney.
My name is Barbara Voorhees. I represent 215 West Lake Faith Drive. There's no question in my mind that this drive-through will bring more traffic and more congestion. I want to tell you all, this is a beautiful community. You guys know 3 beautiful lakes. The way this drive-through is set, it's like, oh, it's just up here. Well, hello, there's 3 beautiful lakes. Any of you here, if you have a little grass around where you live, just a little bit, do you want a drive-through next to you? A drive-through? You talk about quality of life, and I don't understand what is the reason, because people that go to drive-throughs have very little time, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, zoom, zoom, zoom. These are people that nobody knows. It's not community. It's going to be increased crime, litter, and crowding. and not neighborly. Now, let's say it was a big major freeway where people are driving many states away and they need to just come in and get a cup of coffee. This is not what this community is about. When I think of apartment buildings, I think of big buildings, many, many floors. These residences are one story, maybe two. They're just like little people that, they're beautifully kept. Everyone has their doorway, decorated. I just don't understand the reason of a drive-through, and I think it will really reduce the quality of life. And it's not necessary. There's still places that people can eat. The other day I was driving, as this other woman explained, I saw little pieces of cars, plastic, little lights. There's a lot of action at that U-turn, and I would hate to see any more. So thank you for listening, and I fully support a farmer's market. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Voorhees.
Some of my, Martina Vervalis, 285 West Lake Faith Drive. Some of my fears came true tonight. First of all, number one, you cannot make a decision on this. My mind is blown. We said 500 feet, they said 500 feet from on the western edge. Exactly what I said would happen, happened. They went 500 feet into the property. You've got to ask the right questions. These people are going to put on paper whatever they want and then twist it. Keep asking the questions. There's no way a decision could be made tonight. 10,000 square feet of drive-through. What is that? We haven't even asked the question. What does that mean? Is it just the drive-through itself? Oh, there's so much here. And then none of you thought that drive-through would be in the middle of the property. I guarantee it. So, this location cannot handle drive-through at all. It is not the type of location for a drive-through. We all use drive-throughs. We all have a modern life. But this location is a mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly location. What the developer is creating here is suburban blight. He's got buildings that are all separated, 4 buildings separated. Why? There's no reason for that. That's not a village. There's absolutely no reason for that. The entrance to Lake Faith, they should have closed off by now. He should have showed you tonight that entrance is closed off. And it's not. That entrance, as he said, it's going to back up that entire area. So Mike Thomas, yes, people are going to be coming in Lake Faith. They're going to be going all the way through and going to Starbucks. And guess what? People from the grocery store are going to be trying to get out. He has it backed up all the way to Trelago Way. No, there's so much here, so much that is questionable, is not okay. This is not a location for drive-thrus. It never was, and for good reason. This is a pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use location. This is not get off the highway and go. That's not what this was. If you want this to be successful, which we do, then you have to get rid of the drive-thrus. It will be successful with the companies that he has said he wants. Because guess what? It's 450 people surrounding this area that live there and will visit at night because they live there. And guess what? During the day, another, I don't know how many businesses across the way that are going to come for lunch. There's no reason for drive-through. Too many questions. You got to say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Papopoulos.
Good evening. My name is William Brown, 307 Westlake Faith Drive. I first of all would like to thank Mayor Lowndes and Councilman Guthrie for their previous commitment to honor the 2013 agreement. but banned drive-through establishments on Maitland Concourse North. Unfortunately, it seems likely that their wisdom will not be followed by the remaining council members, even though you've all expressed concerns about stacking and loss of control. You are still willing to put your trust in the developer and the city employees. You're planning to go against the overwhelming wishes of the residents as expressed in the 2000 agreement. Why? Possibly because it won't really affect the part of Maitland you live in. Is it because you don't want an ugly strip center and the only alternative is to let the developer have not one, not two, but 2 drive-throughs? Why not? As the mayor actually asked a very important question. Could this not be successful without drive-throughs? And the developer said, of course it could. That's why he bought the land in the first place, because he knew he could make it a success. Is it that you agree that it's because of COVID-19, all restaurants need drive-throughs? That is baloney. Not all drive-throughs, not all restaurants need drive-throughs. We're also now coming out of the pandemic. Some of you may not agree, but most news organizations say that the pandemic is waning. The city attorney has warned you that granting the petition will put the developer in the driver's seat. Once you give him the candy, he will go and eat it, and he'll have fun in the candy store. 2 of you on the council are both attorneys. Let me ask you this. Wouldn't you want your clients to listen and heed your advice? In closing, I would like to thank my Councilman Thomas for his years of service. I know he will be departing soon. And I hope he leaves on a positive note, and join the mayor and Mr. Guthrie in voting no to this petition, no drive-throughs. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Heidi Berry at 1314 Druidale Road, Maitland. I sent an email to you all before the last meeting because I didn't think there was going to be a public period, but I did want to bring to your attention that we are all laughing and carrying on about the insinuation that there might be a certain coffee shop or a certain restaurant that begins with P. But until we have an LOI, none of that is realistic. I pulled up the developer's webpage again. In Ocoee, they have done a development with McDonald's. In Ponciana, they've done a development with Taco Bell. In Lake Butler, they've done a development with Dunkin' Donuts. In Jacksonville with Arby's, and in Orange City with Sonic. So until you have an LOI, you have to assume that those are the kinds of restaurants or drive-thrus that they're going to work with, because those are the restaurants and businesses that they have relationships with. So it's nice for them to throw these words around, but it's all fairy dust until it's in writing. And so you're giving them permission to put in there whatever they would like to put in there. I also wanted to bring your attention to the fact that Dan Mathis did mention at the last meeting, not the one without public period, but the one prior to that, the drive-thrus did generate more traffic than QRSs. The developer at the meeting that I came to spoke about the future of drive-thrus, and the 2 that he used, which I was not familiar with, was an Outback or a P.F. Chang's. So I looked them up. Those are lovely. They're quick service restaurants. They come in. That's the kind of thing that would be lovely in this development. It's something that they could consider since it's something the developer used, but those are not drive-thrus. So there's no reason to approve drive-thrus on this property. I also wanted to mention, Mr. Martin, I did like your design. I think the new design is lovely. I appreciate the time that you took to move the buildings forward The pedestrian area is very nice, and the rendering of the larger building is very nice. I know that we bash you a lot, but it looks lovely, that part of it. However, we do not want the drive-throughs, and I hope that you all listen to your residents and their right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I have more respect for you than at any point I've ever been here in the city of Maitland. My name's Doug Kinson. I'm at 1151 Covewood Trail. I moved to Maitland 22 years ago. Covewood Trail is right off of Sandsburg, just south of Maitland Boulevard right there. My wife Barbara teaches kindergarten at Lake Sebelia, and I got 3 kids who grew up here. During the time I've lived here, I've always been concerned about the impact of future non-residential developments around us. As an example, all along the northern boundary of Maitland Woods, where I lived for 20 years, is commercial development, which includes Maitland Concourse South. So 20 years ago, I reached out to the Battaglia family to make sure that any future development would not infringe on our neighborhoods, which is multiple neighborhoods along the southern border. Fortunately for us, Bill Battaglia listened and took into consideration our concerns as Maitland Concourse South was developed, and now that Maitland Concourse North, or Tres Lago, is finalizing its development. Also, I'm very familiar with drive-throughs and their impact on our community. When I served as mayor, development in our downtown CRA was the pinnacle of discussion and controversy, without question or doubt. Besides density of multifamily, a key focus was on drive-throughs in our CRA. The last thing we wanted was a drive-through on every site, as McDonald's was already there and grandfathered in. We didn't want lines of traffic to be the only thing visitors would see as they visit our downtown. Then came Dunkin' Donuts. I told the developer very directly that we didn't want another McDonald's layout. Long story short, the easy fix was they put the line of cars behind the property, and it worked out fantastic. We're very glad to have Dunkin' Donuts in our downtown. With respect to drive-throughs in general, a big positive is their efficiency when you don't have people parking, going in, coming out, backing up, and leaving. It does make for a much smoother process. I do have just a couple more. I'll finish up here for a little bit. But in this case, it's more than just a decision on drive-throughs. It's what I realized when I drove to Lake Faith from Maitland Woods. Getting in and out would be my greatest concern, period. The Lake Faith entry went from direct access from Maitland Boulevard to gated access off of Lake Faith Drive, which I thought was a great move. So when I sat literally in front of that Lake Faith gate, I realized that with this site plan, I'd have multiple ways to get to that traffic light at Tres Lago Boulevard, which is critical for residents coming and going. In addition, the current location of the drive-throughs has relatively not a lot of impact on my coming and going if I'm a Lake Faith resident and I'm coming out of that gate. That's how I'm looking at it. So I've reviewed the layout from multiple perspectives, feel this is one of the best site plans I've seen since I dealt with Poloni before. And if you look at it closely, the drive-through lanes, which is what we're concerned about in downtown, are really in the middle of the development. I know people have a problem with that, but the impact, if I'm at Lake Faith, I'm coming out of that entrance right there, I've got 3 different paths that I can take. The last thing I want to do is run into anybody that's waiting for food at a drive-through. And finally, I know the Battaglia family and the developer of this site has the best interests of our neighborhoods at hand, as has been indicated before. They've made many positive changes to get you to this point. You've got to be in a position to make the best position possible, because as a longtime resident of the city and as a future customer of the many retail offerings that will result in the site, I absolutely and fully support all of you making the right decision on the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinson.
12-year road. I also support you making the right decision tonight, and that decision tonight would be to honor what the city council told us was going to happen several years ago when we believed them. Integrity was used earlier. I think that's a great word and something that should be remembered. There's all conversation about how this drive-through is going to do this and stacking is going to do that, and it's really a waste of time. We were told there would be no drive-throughs. COVID is not changing the entire world. We don't want drive-throughs. We were told there were not going to be drive-throughs. I don't care how many ways this gets spinned. They could come and tell us they want to put a Wawa here and tell us how great it would be for traffic and stacking and all the rest of it, but you would say no because you don't want gas stations here. We also were told you were going to say no because there are no drive-throughs to be here. This is just going on and on forever. Some of the things we hear from the developer and frankly the city staff. Someone said earlier, it feels like we're trying to appease the developer. I understand he can be heard. Yes, that's his right. Great. And but it seems like between the developer and the city staff, that's who needs to be appeased here, not the city residents. It's really frustrating. It's condescending and it's disrespectful. And I'm lost for words right now. All I would say is please honor your word to the city residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hadley. Is there anybody else who'd like to? Go ahead.
Mark Atlas with the developer, 2345 West Stanley Road, but also to recall was I'm a resident on the west side of Maitland Boulevard, and I'm a current young adult resident that's in the Maitland Club. And yes, we feel like this is, all of us feel like it's going on and on, but no disrespect, we also heard how poorly the Bologna plan would have been received by the public. So he has gone back, used the same consultants that has heard the history from, to nuts about everything that's been going wrong, and also from the council still just trying to make an effort. And that's not what tonight's about. Tonight is voting on whether there's an opportunity to continue working on this and continue hearing critiques and making improvements. But if it's shut down, there's not that chance. And then I just very simply want to say, I feel like going back, I don't know if we can put the Bologna plan back up, but it would be as if they're cutting off your nose and spiting your face. So I know this is much more well received, I believe, than we all had felt about the Bologna. So that's why we are not trying to shove drive-throughs down. But you're not going to get the users you want in this community without having some of these features in the drive-through, and that's just where the market is today, and we would know that best being developers interacting with the users and the leasing agents and brokers on a daily basis. So it can be a strip center or it can be more of a town center. So it's up to you to decide that.
Thank you.
Can I get the projection up over here so you want me to walk to the other end of it? I wanted to show, last time I was up here talking, I talked about the fact how...
I'm sorry, sir, could you
Oh, I'm sorry, my name's Mike Rusnak, and 347 Westlake Faith Drive. No, I guess we can't do it. If you look up there, the way they've done the plate up there, and they've done all of them, there's usually an open space. That open space is home to about, well, over 100 condominiums, and people live in those condos. More than one person per condo. And then to put things into perspective and let you figure out how it started here. In the beginning, we relinquished our direct access to Maitland Boulevard, to Batavia, based on the promises. We were promised several things. They went through, everything went fine. Well, they started development and all that stuff, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I know we promised you this, but we need a drive-through. we have to have a drive-through. We're going to have only one way into our community, okay? And you can't see it up there. They didn't put it up there, but we only have one way. It's on the other side. And as a matter of fact, the smaller road on the far side over there that only has one way in and out, that's actually Lake Faith Drive. They didn't mark that for some reason. They did mark Lago, but we won't go there either. We only have one way in, and it's basically generally off of that one road. There is no deceleration lane in our section. To fool yourself by thinking that people are going to come in one way, go around a circle, they're not going to do that. Once they figure out they can come in the other way and shortcut, they're going to start doing that. All right, we only have one way into our community, and there's no acceleration lane going out of the thing. So you're going to have backups on both coming out. People are going to be backed up. We're not going to be able to get in and out of that place. We can't do it now. I'm asking you guys to rethink and rethink and rethink. Do we really need that? Think about all the other fast food restaurants out there. Like, they got a kick the other day after they talked about Chicken Alley. Yeah, it's a mess. Go on the other side of I-4. You look at Wendy's, and you look at, and these guys have been there forever, and they're still backing up. Please, for the sake of the community, think really hard about it. We don't need the fast food in there. If the food's going to be good, people will be stopping. If the shops are the right shops, then people will be stopping to shop. And the people who come in to get fast food aren't going to stop and go out there and buy a $5,000 ring because they got fast food there. Please, vote for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rusnak. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard tonight? Okay, let's close the public period. And I just want to kind of focus the discussion on what the decision we have to make tonight. Certainly, we have a comprehensive development plan, and that is kind of the constitution, the charter of how we're going to develop the city. And it is a document that takes years and years to perfect and to work. And but it's a living document. And property owners have the right to come before the council and the P&Z and ask that the CDP be amended in a way that they want. That's their right as property owner to do that. In my view, the bar is pretty high. I don't, the CDP is not to be taken lightly. It's a thing that really kind of develops. I mean, it's direct development, and it should be honored. I mean, it doesn't, things do take amending from time to time, and things do change. But if you're going to amend the development plan, you better have a really good reason. And so I think the bar, again, is pretty high. And for me, I don't see that we've met that. I don't think that the current COVID situation generating more drive-through is something that should, plant those buildings there and create those rights at infinitum. So I just don't think that's a good reason to do it. It is what concerns me about this plan, and I do appreciate Mr. Martin's work on this plan, but what concerns me about this is when I look at it, I see that what could be a coffee shop, what could be a pastry shop. It really defines what that development is. I mean, those are the two flagship visible pieces of those buildings there. And if those are drive-throughs, I mean, that's a drive-through development. And I'm not sure that that's really what we're after here, is drive-through development. I just don't believe that we've reached the point where we can say that the development plan needs to be rewritten or amended. And that's where I am on this. So, anybody else have any comments?
So I think in some way you're relying on the good faith of the developer to come back with a better plan and their drive-throughs. So he could come back with the Poloni plan, which is park your car, walk to the asphalt parking lot, and go to your Five Below or Five Guys or things like that without a lot of these amenities. So what he's done is said, well, we will greatly increase the project if you give us a couple drive-throughs. And what he's proposed, which would be worked out over time, is significantly better than the Poloni plan. So will he still do these improvements without the drive-throughs? And he's not going to answer that question. So I think we're kind of focused on having a nice project with or without drive-throughs, or without drive-throughs, and I think we can get a very bland project without drive-throughs. So I don't know how to do that, but I think the location of the coffee shop, the Starbucks, I don't see how that poses any issues. Everything is kind of sequestered in that one little corner, and all the traffic flow just kind of turns in real quick, drives through, and it gets back on Maitland West Boulevard. So the second one and driving through most of the project to get to that second drive-through is to me more problematic. So that's why I asked, what a reasonably consistent means. I've done a lot of research on strip centers, and remarkably, they're making somewhat of a comeback. And so they could build a Poloni plan and make money. They definitely could do that. I went through all the data. People want smaller businesses. They want the easy parking. And so those are making a comeback. The restaurant business is changing in ways that we up here don't even fathom yet. Everything is digital. The idea of a drive-through where you come up and mark your order, that's all going away. It's all going to be apps. You're going to punch in your app. You're going to go through, and it's going to be like a bank. Just shove the food at you. They won't even deal with humans. You get your barcode, and boom, and here comes your food, and you're out. So all that, and that really is the way the restaurant business is going. We can say we don't like it. We can say, well, they'll just have to build it our way, but they won't. And the reason for that is during the height of COVID, 90% of restaurant business was takeout. Takeout and drive-in saved the restaurant industry during COVID. And they're well aware of that lesson. And so it's not a fairy tale. It's a matter of survival for restaurants. And so, how we mesh all this, I don't know. The thought that we can, just say a flat no to drive-throughs and expect the strip mall to be something marvelous, it's just not going to happen. We would have to rely on the developer's good faith to do these improvements without us, giving him something. So, I understand the concern about this. The thing about the Maitland Boulevard and making turns and U-turns, I mean, we live in the middle of the next Los Angeles, so it isn't getting any better. It's just going to get worse. And that little, that drive-through is not going to turn the world on its head. Particularly the Starbucks one. It's not going to generate more traffic. It's not going to back traffic up. So, I'm of mixed mind, and I know that back when they did make a commitment that there would be no drive-throughs, and so, that's something to honor as well. But right, that Starbucks, that would have no effect on Lake Faith or on traffic on Maitland Boulevard. The other drive-through, I don't know. I was like Lindsay, I kind of thought, whoa, that's in the middle of the project, and I thought they'd all be shoved to the left. So, I don't want to totally kill this, because I think there's so many improvements over this site plan than the other one. And I think if we kill it and we get your, strip mall with the Five Below and the nail salon and the liquor store and maybe a pharmacy and those types of stores, and they will go in there and they will be successful because of the location and because there's a big grocery store. But anyway, I'll stop rambling now, but I just, sometimes Mike Wild comes up with ways to bail these out and move forward. I don't know if he has a magic solution this time, but anyway. Do that, you're laughing.
Anybody?
Okay, yeah, I with what you say about all these, Five Belows, dollar shops, check cashing places, that's what I think.
I didn't say that.
That's kind of what I'm thinking you get more with the drive-throughs, because drive-throughs are going to keep people from stopping. And people who come through drive-throughs aren't going to stop and go shop. If when this was all done, and you say back then, it was probably a couple of weeks or months before you came on to council, because it was only 6 years ago and you're getting ready to step off. So this was supposed to be a destination location. This was something that I was there, I was here, I was in the crowd listening. I was at the lectern, not the podium, the lectern, talking, and it was sold as, you're going to be proud of this, it's going to have restaurants, it's going to have things people want. And then we saw the other developer came in and he had it kind of broken up, and he was talking about high-end restaurants in a village setting. And that's how it was always supposed to be, a village setting. There's supposed to be access for the people from Lake Faith Villas to go over to the grocery store without driving, pick up their stuff, come home, go out to dinner. The same for Trey Lago. And that's not what we're getting here. And I think it goes back to a promise. And as John said, the CDP is the Constitution. We just can't throw it around all willy-nilly and say, you know what, you're right, we'll just change it for anything. It really has to take a lot, and I don't think, the drive-throughs are going to really make it a better project. I think that, back to it, if this is the swan song for this developer, I believe in him. I believe he's going to bring something nice. I mean, I was kind of impressed with, this layout also. I thought it was a good layout. And I think he can do that. I think, he's smart enough, he's talented enough to really bring something very special to Maitland. And that's what I want to see. When I was out campaigning 2 years ago, that 85 to 90% of the complaint was the apartments. Everybody, apartments, more apartments, more apartments. And that's kind of what people don't want to see here. And if we bring in drive-throughs, you're going to hear about drive-throughs. What kind of town are we changing into? I'd rather be a quality town and have a destination location. And I'm sorry, this is my personal view. I don't think drive-throughs bring that to that area. And I don't think that the impact, especially that middle piece, to the residents of Lake Faith Villas is very fair to them. Today I stopped and I've been to all these meetings and listening, and I put together some of the concerns, and there's just so many concerns. There's traffic concerns, walkability concerns. Homeowners bought with the understanding that no drive-throughs would be built. Too much activity for a thin 7-acre parcel. P&Z voted 4-1 against this, and in 2012, they pushed this to council and said, we recommend no drive-throughs, and council voted for it. All right, so like I said, 6 years ago was the promise. It's not that long ago. You know, I don't think with how that property's set up, there's no north, east, or west ingress or egress. And, you know, back to it, the vision has always been about a destination. And I'm going to leave with a quote that I heard somebody say one time. If predictable, then it's preventable. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Anybody have a comment? Or
I'm not sure that truly the addition or non-addition of the drive-through is going to define this project. I think that this project is, if you combine it with the commercial on the other side, you've got 150,000 square feet of retail commercial going in there. And the difficult thing here is that you can name any user that you want. What we're really doing is approving uses. And so you're not, I do think that the discussion sort of shifts sometimes when you start talking about how I'd like to see this person, this business, because I'd like to go get whatever they sell. But there's no guarantee that that's what's going to be there. So to me, we should focus less on any particular user, any particular kind of thought about what that's going to offer, and look at the project as a whole. And I hear your concern, Vance, as to whether or not this becomes a destination setting. And I'm not totally convinced that the addition of a drive-through or not fundamentally changes that direction. And I think that that's so when I look at this project, I look at it in its totality and say, okay, looking at the existing plan that's on the books and looking at the plan that's being proposed, is the overall plan a plan that is going to promote that kind of destination setting? And are there enhancements to this that would promote better users from coming in? Because really what you're talking about is if you approve a layout and if you approve a design, hopefully that's going to promote, if you approve a better design, you're going to get better quality tenants. If you have a less than stellar design, does that promote less than stellar tenants? And so I think the approach is this putting together a plan that then would attract the best users that we could get out of this site. And to me, those are the questions, because I don't know that truly a drive-through or not is going to change that destination setting. And so, I mean, I hear you, Vance, but I don't know in this market, in this world, if the users that everybody would like to see there are or are not drive-through centric businesses. So I mean, I hear your concern, but I look at a park there, and I look at that green space. Having a green space, does that make a tenant want to be there? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I don't know that we could look at another plan and say that that's the best plan that we would want to see in this location. So I think, like you said, I think we have concerns about this current plan, but is this better, and have they made this better? And if this had been promoted to P&Z 3 months ago, could they have tweaked this plan and commented on this plan and maybe gotten some better feedback? And if they had met with residents on this plan, would we be in a different spot now or not? And could there have been some concerns about just drive-throughs alone that would have been potentially alleviated by pointing out the benefits of this plan and the potential users that this would attract? So this is to me challenging, because I think we're focused on this drive-through element, which is appropriate because it is the topic of conversation. But I don't know that a drive-through in and of itself defines this project.
Can I'm sorry, I don't want to hog the microphone, but I'm going to be going into other. So I researched a lot of that, and basically what these strip centers want is they want a great location and they want a grocery store. Those are the two most important things. And then beyond that, they want a mix of uses that space out traffic over the entire day. So they want something that attracts traffic in the morning. They want something that attracts it. So morning would be like the coffee place. They want something like restaurants that would attract people in the evening. They want dry cleaners and all those kind of, service things that attract people during the day. So a drive-through isn't going to change the character of the project. It's just a way. It just brings in more traffic over the length of the day, and so that's why they want it. And then if the developer is more successful, then the city's more successful. So if we think that they will deliver all these goods, if we take these improvements, if we say no to the drive-throughs and count on their good faith or their marketing that says if we do these other improvements and we can still make more money than the Bologna plant, or if we just throw the asphalt buildings out, then we can make even more money because it's a lower cost. So, anyway, now I will officially be quiet.
John, I don't know if staff, again, I would have probably, like I said, if I'd seen this plan, I think we all might have had a comment from staff. I don't know if you want John to.
Well, I asked the question to Mr. Martin, and he said this plan has not changed other than the loss of one driver. This is the plan we've been looking at for months. There's nothing different about this other than there's two, not three drivers. That's what he said. And P&Z had the opportunity to do that. They had all day long. So, the hill we have to climb is, P&Z had this. They voted 4-1 against it. We've had 2, 3, 4 public hearings now, I guess, and virtually everybody who's come up to the microphone has spoken against it. That's the hill we have to climb. If we think that P&Z was wrong and that the residents that we've heard are wrong, then we amend the plan. And that's where we are. And I would also say, as to it's either this or that, the Bologna plan or this. I'm impressed with Mr. Sharon. He is the UCF Hall of Fame business man, and so he said, and he's told us once or twice that he wants to make this a legacy project. He's here to make this a legacy project. He's here to make this thing a big success. And I don't think, and he bought the property with the Bologna plan. Tomorrow, he could come up and bring this plan to us and say, I imagine this is the type of plan things would be a legacy type project. I don't see him just developing the Bologna plan. I think he knows that he would get 5-0 vote up here easily if he brought this plan forward, without the drive-throughs in it, that we would certainly go with it. So I don't believe that this is an either-or choice for us. I think there's more to be done, and I think Mr. Martin's put a lot of work into this project to make it look like this. And this is a better looking project with or without drive-through. But I do think that I can't think of a development that I would go to, I feel comfortable going to, bring my family and walking to, and having a farmer's market atmosphere that has 2 drive-throughs. I can't think of one. I think we can all rack our imaginations. It doesn't appear to me that that's. Well, Winter Park Village has them out in the out parcels. They don't have this. We don't walk around the out parcels. The farmers market touches the property that will have a drive-through. So it's a different kind of thing. Anyway, that's where I am.
I think P&Z voted on a totally different. The way you phrased it is accurate, but I also believe that what P&Z voted on was substantially different. So I don't know if Mr. Martin, I don't know what he said. I don't recall exactly how he said it, but P&Z voted on a plan that had no limit on drive-throughs and no other specificities. So, but your point is taken.
That's incorrect.
Dan, can you clarify what P&Z voted on? Maybe I am incorrect. happy to be correct.
The only vote that P&Z had was on the CDP portion of it. They got to see the PD after it. They didn't vote on the PD because it was still the initial community meeting. So all they did is give direction to staff to say, if this goes forward, here's what we want you to look at. There was no vote on the PD plan.
So they never
We're not
saw
voting on the
this.
PD plan either.
They saw it because it had the initial community meeting, but with PDs, they usually go to that community meeting, they send it back to staff with their comments and concerns, and then after several rounds of reviews, then it comes back for them to actually vote and recommend to council.
My understanding, you can correct me, my understanding is that P&Z voted on a comp plan amendment that just said, notwithstanding we're going drive-throughs, or it allowed drive-throughs on lot 1. And then the additional language that we're seeing tonight that is modifying that text amendment is not what P&Z voted on.
I think that's correct. You're correct.
And
My point was that they had the opportunity to have to say something.
Absolutely, and I think that there was opportunity lost on that one. Absolutely.
Where a lot of discussion on that was 3 was way too many, then 2 was too many, and then it was like a little waffling back and forth is 1 the number, is 0 the number. So that was kind of the discussion at P&Z.
There was also a slippery slope argument that if we approve it on one property, then we're going to have them on other properties, which of course that's not the current situation up here what we're discussing. The language is amended.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Council, motion.
Can we get creative and say one drive-through or move everything to the left of the 500-foot buffer? I mean, is there anything we can do that would?
Well,
I think we told them everything we wanted to tell in the last 5 meetings with them.
Well, I think you can frame the motion any way you'd like to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough, but it's their plan, and it's got to be something that's.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any sort of an incentive for them to doll this project up as much as possible. You know, the coffee shop really has no impact outside of that little circle. The middle building is more concerning because we're running cars halfway or 3/4 the way down the project and then looping them back, and then the idea that they would turn into the Lake Faith Road to access that would also, I think Dan's mentioned, that would also be a concern, whereas the coffee place is so isolated and right next to that entry and exit that doesn't really affect anything. You know, rather than kill it entirely, and trying to keep some incentive for the developer to do our farmers market and these other things, although the farmers market better not be on Sunday morning. I would, if this is appropriate, limit the drive-through, because if this is going to go down, I'd rather limit the drive-through to that one location and have that as a carrot for the developer, because that would be a nice money maker for him, and it would be a nice draw for the whole project. So it wouldn't impact the rest of the world. It's so isolated, it wouldn't make it a drive-through project. So, and I think at least $50 of my monthly income would go to that with my wife driving west on Maitland Boulevard. So, you know, I would keep that in there if we're going to make a motion. And
I don't know if we can make a motion change.
well, see, I don't know either. So
I think we need to move on.
I mean, we can leave out, you know, an incentive that won't impact the rest of the world or for the project. outside of that space and hope that creates a nice incentive for the developer to proceed with some of his improvements, or we can count on his good faith to do that.
Danny, can you pull up excuse me, sir, we have the floor up here, Mr. Thomas, can you pull up the language on CDP again?
I mean, if we can't do that,
Well, no, I mean, if we can vote on whatever we want to vote on tonight, what we have to vote on is the language in a CDP amendment, yes or no. So what that language is has to be acceptable to the developer and to the board, because he's the applicant. So, Mr. Thomas, is the view of that language there, does that mean anything to you?
I mean, how would I change that?
Yes.
You know, if I'm going off the deep end, just stop me, but I'm just
Stop. Stop.
Please,
Stop.
please, but-
Stop. Just stop.
Folks, y'all,
It's a no.
if you want to talk, you can take the one, you can outside and talk. Cliff, do you have a suggestion here?
I do. I do. This is the language of the applicant. The applicant controls the application. That's what you vote on. If you then wish to make motions for suggestions or language that he may want to consider, if, I don't even know if it's possible, Dan, you might know, but there used to be a timeline after you've applied when you could apply again for something different. So that notwithstanding, but this is the application. And the reason this application is important is because it's been brought forth by the developer as opposed to being negotiated from here, something we've talked about previously. The developer is entitled to vote on that. So unless the developer comes forward and says, we'll make a change in our suggestion and here's what we would do to see if he or she or it can get the vote, this is what we're voting on.
Okay, so we're going to get to the end here tonight, I promise. But we have to understand what we're voting on here. And this is what we're voting on, it's up there on the screen. And I think that Mr. Mickey, do you have any questions or a comment? Perhaps you can go up and...
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We would respectfully request to revise our language. I understand what Cliff is saying. You can't really make the motion to change the requested language, but we can request that you change the language. And what we would like to do is change the language to in effect, and we could talk about it. I know we don't like to negotiate on the fly, but I think it would be easy. Stay at 2 and move the drive-through from building 4 to building 1. That caused some concern that it stayed in the middle of the property. So what that would say, it would be to change the 500 feet. John, do you have any idea how?
Yeah, I would say to the two most western buildings, the drive-through would be located in the two most western buildings based on the site.
Well, but they need some feet, because otherwise you could have, one building way over there, and it'd be one of the two western.
I would say 300 feet.
300 feet. With the expectation that it would be, and I'm telling you here on the record, and if there's a camera, I'll look at the camera, that second one would be building 1 in that northwest corner, and within that 300-foot limit. And I think that would allay the fears of the concern in the middle, and obviously if the traffic route will need to be taken into consideration at the PD level. Part of the issue here, Mr. Mayor, is the detail with which the comp plan was adopted has so much detail. It was like a PD plan back then. And now we're dealing with, amending a comp plan with sort of a PD process. And I get it, and we're trying our best to accommodate all those fears. But if we would propose to change, basically say 300, change the 500 to 300.
Okay, I think I understand, Mr. Grindstaff, what you're after. It still has to come in the form of a motion from the council, and as I understand it, what you're suggesting is that instead of the central building there, you would move it up to the building 4, which is the back. Yeah, very good.
The problem is now we don't have a site plan that we can even reference anymore. I mean, we're
Yeah.
making this, we're creating problems to solve a problem, and I appreciate, like I said, I actually appreciate what we're doing. It's just this has been awkward, and I think part of the challenge is we've sort of voiced some of these concerns, but it's coming up, dealing with this in this way is tough. So I just don't, and I appreciate what we're trying to do. I just don't know how you can do this, cobbling together a motion based on a site plan, and now we don't even have a site plan to reference.
Would you agree, Commissioner, that if for example, we just remove the drive-through facility on Building 4, would that be just remove Building 4, would that be a complicated, so complicated that we couldn't be able to do it tonight?
But now we're not seeing the site plan that, I guess then the drive-through shifts to.
This is.
The drive-through goes to the top.
Yeah.
How about a little, just a slightly bit of a personal request? Might we recess, Mr. Mayor, for 5 minutes and give me an opportunity to speak with Mr. Shalom about the procedures and what happens here and where we go, and if there's any other options available?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I'm for the record, mine is not changed. Does anybody want to have a motion on this? Anybody? Okay. So let's hang with it.
I'm happy. I would.
I'm happy. I need a moment of personal privilege, so I would be more than happy to give them 5 minutes because I need a moment, so.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Grindstaff, we have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further revision to our requested language. Talked to Mr. Sharon. He is committed to a quality project. He genuinely believes it's a mistake not to allow at least 2 drive-throughs. Understands the concerns. That said, we would like to propose that the language for 2 drive-throughs be reduced to 1 drive-through. So the revision, that's 2 to 1. The next one would be west 300 feet of lot 1. That's for a little wiggle room. We're not sure the layout there because it's just going to be 1. And the square footage would be cut in half to 5 from 10,000 to 5,000. So you're talking about 1 in the corner. And if you want to say a southern portion, you can say that too. We're talking about the west 300 feet, 1 drive-through, 5,000 square feet, the same interior square footage comment.
Okay. Go ahead.
So that would be where, on the current plan, where that building is, the current plan where that coffee shop is located, is that what we're talking about? Right.
Yeah, it would still be in building, we're still thinking it would be like in this area, but that's why we said, in case something changes, like right in this area still. Drive through be here.
That's building 2, right?
Building 2, correct.
He said he talked about building 1.
Building 2 right here.
You said building 1.
So Joey went
Sit
1.
down.
Up here, guys, up here. Yes, I think,
Sorry,
Mr. Cook, you said building 1, I think you meant building 2, right? Is that building 2 down in the southwest corner?
Building 2 in the southwest corner.
Is that what you're proposing?
Yes.
Okay.
And all the other improvements would go along with that, the added sidewalks and
Yes, sir.
farmer's market, so the farmer's market wouldn't be near any sort of drive-through.
It's green space, so, yeah.
I think farmer's market was an option. I don't know if the farmer's market is a line item. I don't know if that's the case, but that makes sense.
Okay. So, does that make sense, council? Anybody have a question of Mr. Grindstaff?
Just to be clear, Mr. Mayor, that's down from 2 buildings, 2 drive-throughs to 1 drive-through. I'm not referencing lot numbers there or building numbers. That's the number of drive-throughs. So the one we're talking about would be building 2 in the corner, but it may be reconfigured, and we would talk about the west 300 feet, not more than 5,000 feet, would be in the other language.
Okay. Right, yeah.
That's the language we're requesting. Right, Cliff? Thank you.
So that's, and if that appeals to anybody on council, they can make that motion.
I'll throw it out to make that motion. I'm not exactly sure how I would word it.
Dan, could you help me there?
Well, the language, if I understand correctly, the language, the written language didn't change, did it, Mr. Grindstaff? Only the site plan reference?
No.
So
I think what we're saying, let me take a stab. I think his motion is to,
It goes down, I know it goes down to 5,000 feet
And then discuss it too.
on the southwest corner.
You've got 2 drive-throughs in the text.
yeah, so we're going to 1, and so I think, Mike, you are asking for the change the comp plan to allow for a maximum of 1 drive-through. Has to be located within the western 300 feet, and the proposed PD plan still will sunset on March 1, 2024, and it has to be reasonably consistent with PD concept plan as proposed originally November 29th, as modified as recently as February 28th, and as further modified with the reduction in the drive-through off of building 4.
And not to exceed 5,000.
Right.
Got it, I don't, yeah. Oh, I said that, but if I didn't.
All the other improvements in the
Yeah,
project,
so
the
it-
walkability, the green space, all of that,
Which I think is what is consistent with the PD plan.
reasonably consistent.
Mike, is that right, Dan?
Yeah, basically, it would say, commercial uses within the MORC category shall not include big box retail drive-through establishments of any kind, except that one drive-through establishment with a cumulative, well, with a square feet not to exceed 5,000 may be allowed on the southwest 300 feet of Lot 1. The rest of it just as it's read, as it's written.
Can I just make that motion?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Got a motion, second.
Can I, just a question for discussion, so this is nothing that has to go back through the process, we feel like the fact we don't have to send it back through P&Z.
As a comp plan, so the answer is no.
Okay, just want to make sure,
But to be
I thought so,
also
just want to
clear,
make sure.
the plan, the sort of diagram will clearly go back through some P and Z, through DRC, all the stuff that ordinarily
Which
goes.
comes to the
And then
PD.
it'll ultimately come back here.
Okay.
And then you will make the determination whether it's reasonably consistent, I think is the language. So all of that's still to come.
And I think to answer the question for looking at this is that, does the one drive-through change the dynamic that's also being introduced with green space now put in, walkability put in, that's enhanced, buildings that are pulled up closer to the road, all things that we said we wanted? Does the drive-through, in and of itself, one drive-through say, yeah, but I don't care, it sort of overwhelms it. A drive-through is too important to allow to say that all those other things that are improvements are secondary. And I think that's the question, is that looking at the project as a whole, does the change in the overall plan make this a better plan or not? And to me, that's more important than just the one drive-through. Because I think one drive-through on that one side, does it or does it not fundamentally change the character?
I'm with you, I would say probably not.
You know, that middle one kind of, to me, it violated the intent of the 500 feet because you were driving 1,000 feet into the project to access the driving. So that, to me, wasn't a real 500 feet. This is, we're isolating that to a little corner where they'll go in and out. And it really won't have any effect on, it blocks in a lot of nice improvements.
And while this, I think, is less than ideal, like I said, I do appreciate the fact that I would have liked this to come up a lot sooner, and the community input, I think, would have shaped this a lot more. But that's how this was vetted, was through this process, so
Agreed.
we are where we are.
I think the community, I mean, we started out with unlimited drive-throughs and all kind, and people stepped forward, and now we beat them down to a much better project.
But he didn't say that.
He didn't say that. That was not the terminology he meant to say.
We had a willing negotiation.
Yes.
We have a discussion on this, we have a motion and a second. Okay, Madam Clerk, will you read the roll, please?
Councilmember Guthrie?
Nay.
Councilmember Hall Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas? Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes?
Nay. Okay. It is approved as amended. All right, we have another ordinance to get to this evening. Regarding the land development code. Yes. Laura, will you please read the title?
An ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, amending the Maitland Code of Ordinances relating to an update of the City of Maitland Land Development Code with an associated repeal and replacement of obsolete sections of the code, providing for general provisions, providing for administration of development review, providing for zoning districts, providing for use regulations, providing for development standards, providing for subdivision standards, providing for public facility funding, providing for nonconformities, providing for enforcement, providing for definitions and rules for construction, interpretation, and measurement, deleting provisions that will become mute upon the adoption of this updated land development code, providing a severability clause, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Dan, you're up.
All right, council, thank you again. So this obviously is the public hearing and action hearing for the Land Development Code update. Just wanted to we talked a lot in the last meeting and the workshop about the whole history and the timeline of what happened. But what this really does is take us back to 2017 when staff began drafting the comp plan, the CDP. And with P&Z's assistance in shaping the document, it became a multi-award winning comprehensive development plan that was recognized by the state. But more importantly, that CDP set the progressive framework for the overhaul of this land development code, and it emphasized the importance of adaptive opportunities while keeping the city competitive and thinking differently. And that's something that when I came on board here, discussion with property owners, discussion with development community, discussion with residents, a lot of comments that I had when I first started here was that we need to change the way we think, we need to change the way things are going. So in 2019, right after the adoption of the CDP, we started drafting the Land Development Code. And again, through P&Z's extensive assistance shaping the document, it's resulted in a document that addresses every item that was identified in the needs assessment, as well as the stakeholder interviews with council, P&Z, as well as key staff members. So why this document is significant, our goal was to write a code that honors Maitland's past while creating a future that's distinguished in the region, one that is a community for success. And we did this by setting out to write a code that builds and implements on many of the council adopted documents, including the comprehensive plan, the bike ped master plan, the downtown master plan, west side master plan, as well as sustainability plan, which all of these describe Maitland's long-range vision. We also listened to the residents, the businesses, and the property owners when drafting the code, and exploring utilizing local, regional, and national best practices while adapting to the unique qualities that we have here in Maitland. So the result of this document over the past 2+ years is a modern, efficient, and equitable code that will help set Maitland apart from other local and regional municipalities, as well as put our city on a competitive and sustainable forward trajectory. As we talked about in the comprehensive plan, we talked a lot about the arc of an organization and over time needing to stay above that curve. And so staff thinks that this absolutely hits it to the date. So from this draft code received unanimous vote from P&Z for approval, as well as unanimous VRC approval, and council 2 weeks ago unanimously introduced the ordinance and set tonight for the public hearing date. So staff respectfully recommends council adopt the proposed ordinance amending the code and update the city's relating to the update of the city's Maitland's Land Development Code. Sorry, it's been a long meeting. With that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions?
Let's go through the tables one by one.
Yeah.
Lori asked me to say that.
Yes, I did.
Lori, I'm going to make you read a much longer ordinance next time.
Just so the viewing public has an idea, I mean, this is the code, so this is what we're adopting tonight. It's lots of words and lots of pictures. So, and to be perfectly serious though, all credit to you, Dan. Thank you for pushing this through and kind of seeing the vision for this, and all credit goes also to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we've said it before, but we're just repeating that, they spent untold, unpaid hours fly specking that, not just fly specking, but also kind of big picturing it. So it was a monumental lift, and I think we're finally at the point where we're just about to adopt it. It's really going to change the development going forward in the city, and it's I think it's a great step forward. Let's open the public hearing to see if anybody else thinks it's as great as I think it is. The public hearing is now open for the Land Development Code.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor, Martha Bryant Paul. 455 Armada Lane. Yeah, could you leave the recommendations up, please?
Absolutely, I'm sorry, I hit the mouse and it threw everything off, so.
I see that the city has approved the land development code to change it with the recommendation from planning and zoning, and also I do believe CDP. And as I spoke before, that the residents were not notified, and to change this area. And you were speaking of back here where the school, where the developer is going to build, right? That's basically part, I'm speaking on that part. Is that part of?
And I think every property in Maitland will be affected one way or another, but yes.
Okay, but I'm speaking on the Woodbridge area, the Summit Charter School, Oak Street, Armada Lane.
Right.
I'm speaking on that area.
Okay.
Now, maybe the other residents did get notice as to what was happening, but I can say that I notice most of you have been here maybe 20 years. I have been in this area since 1959, maybe longer than some of you were born. And we have been economically great. You're coming in with this area here, High-Stick. I'm wondering, has there been a traffic study done for this area? For the ingress as well as egress? There's only one way coming in for the new development. One way into this area. I understand that from the last meeting that he's going to abandon Oak Street. So, and we do not have the quality of neighborhood. There's no quality of neighborhood. Maitland is a beautiful place. But Maitland has overlooked this area since 1887. We have never been, we are not notified. So you come in with the developer, and I can understand the developer wishes for the area to look better. I do too. Because when I bought this property in 1979, that is the reason I bought this property and built my home, because I wanted better. When the city refused to even give us lights. There's a train track there. And what happened when the train derailed? You only have one way in and one way out. From what I understand, Kingston Lexington is not going to give a right-of-way for these homeowners to come through there. And Armada Lane is a narrow strip. How are you going to develop that? And then for the plan, that there's a pond that will be at the front of my home. So I'm concerned with a lot of development. I understand I was going to get a copy of the plans. One of the commissioners told me that Dan would send it to me, but I have not received anything. So thank you very much. That's my concern.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brunhall. And I hope that this might put your mind a little bit at ease. I think that you're concerned about the development for Summit Charter School.
That's what I
Okay, all right. Yes, and that's not what we're going to vote on tonight. Just so, but it is
It's
covered
part
forward.
of, because it affects us. It affects us.
Are you on, did she get a notification when that comes out?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what she's referring to is a PD application that's going through the process right now. It has nothing to do with the land development code. It's a separate PD document, a separate development that council will see if and when it gets to you. It'll be a few months down the road at the earliest.
Public hearing is still open. Does anybody else like to address this?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ron Williams. I currently reside at 227 Rickman Lane, Vermont Park, but grew up in Maitland and still have a lot of family in Maitland. I'm speaking to you today as a member of BW Legacy LLC, which owns 3 double lots and 1 single lot within Maitland. The double lots are all corner lots located at 2000 Rogers, 1950 Rogers, and 132 Thompson. And the single lot is a corner lot located at 1800 Rogers, Unfortunately, under current zoning laws, we're not able to build the homes that we design on any of the corner lots due to the double front yard setbacks required for corner lots. BW Legacy is a family company owned by me, my wife, my mom, who is sitting in the audience tonight and is a lifelong resident of Maitland. Her name is Laverne Bellamy Williams, and my siblings. I grew up in the Bellamy Heights community of Maitland, which is named after my maternal grandparents, my mom's parents, Les and Gussie Bellamy. The B in BW Legacy stands for Bellamy, and the W stands for Williams. As a child, I actually lived in homes on 2 of the properties on Rogers and attended Open Door Missionary Baptist Church, which is adjacent to the lot at 132 Thompson. My family and I were not builders, but we simply want to invest in the Bellamy Park Heights neighborhood and help revitalize that area. That has really a lot of fond memories for our family and will help to enhance and continue my grandparents' legacy. Assuming the proposed changes in the LDC, we plan to subdivide each of the double lots, which will give us 6 single lots with 1 single lot already in existence, and build 7 single-family homes in that neighborhood. Again, which we think will go a long ways towards changing the character of the neighborhood. Again, as I mentioned, the 4 of the lots are single corner lots, and I always thought it was advantageous to have corner lots, and that they were more desirable. However, if they are 50 by 100 and platted in the early 1900s, it turns out that's not the case. Because of the double setbacks, it is very difficult to build, homes that would be livable, and again, to the standards that we would like to build to enhance that community. And I would add that that's not just our opinion, but when we went before the DRC, one of the developers, one of the only members of the community that is a developer, agreed with that and said that those lots would not be buildable. In theory, staff and the DRC supports our projects and would like us to build them to improve the neighborhood. However, they don't meet the current zoning laws, and so we're here to speak in favor of the changes, and particularly the changes that allows staff to use discretion within parameters to approve projects of this nature. So we urge you all to approve the proposed amendments, and we thank staff for, as was mentioned, all of the hard work that they've done to get us to this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Anybody else like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, let's close the public period. And so, Dan, I sent you some changes I'd like to see in the document. And I don't know whether it's worth dragging everybody through that tonight, or we're gonna have a glitch bill on this at some point, where we're gonna do some cleanup and get code issues through, or is it worth? But these are not earth-shattering items. One of them has to do with the item that Mr. Williams brought up, which is, I think it is a good idea to have the ability to do an administrative adjustment, which I think would allow Mr. Williams to build the development he was able to build. Otherwise, you would not be able to get a variance, because we just have a hard and fast rule: if you don't meet the standards, you don't get it. We now have, I think it's up to 25% of a change on certain setbacks and things like that you can do alone. My concern with that, and we've talked about it before, is that's a good thing, but we have to have some accountability on that. And so I would suggest that we add a phrase, at the end of that section, it says, promptly following the approval of each administrative adjustment, the community development director shall forward a copy of it along with the narrative of the relief sought and granted simultaneously to the city manager and each member of the council, so that we're aware of what's going on in the neighborhoods. If they want to put the chicken coop right next to your house, Mike, you're going to hear about it.
I thought you were for chicken.
Well, it'll happen after it already happens, so you'll get notice in that afterwards, at least on that. But again, I don't know that we need to go through it. I have several, half dozen of these things. How hard is it to amend the code once we do this? Do we have to go back to P&Z and do the whole thing?
It would, but we fully anticipate anytime you adopt a document of this size that there's going to be some patches that we're going to have to find, just like a software. There's going to be some glitches that you have to do patches. So I anticipate there will be some patches. We can bring this back in the next whatever time frame you see fit to do the patch. We did talk about at the workshop, the council P&Z workshop, about doing potentially a quarterly or monthly report for any of these. We also are mapping them on our online GIS system, so they will be available to the public, as well as having to notify the immediate adjacent affected property owner and provide them with the appeal process where they can appeal to council prior to becoming effective. But we could, if the desire is to do more frequently than monthly or quarterly, we could do that as well. We could do it on a case-by-case basis if that's...
Yeah, I would like to see it come up through, pretty promptly after it happens, just so that we're aware of it, because we're going to hear from residents, and we better be armed with what goes on. So I think that's an important one. I don't want to wait 6 months or a year to have it shoved through P&Z before that happens. So if it's
That's fine with me.
and I have a couple of others. I don't know if you have the ability to pull up my email.
I don't have the ability to put them up on the screen, but I can read them, or we can...
Okay, but you all humor me when I go through a couple of these, and before the motion's made, I would like to include these in the motion, that there would be small changes to the code, and just to get them done now, so we don't have to wait. So I don't think there's anything controversial. I think they're probably mostly helpful, but it's up to you all.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Okay. We've got our 5-minute break, so now we can go for another 3 hours. I do, I have mine.
Can we put a time on
Oh, yeah, we can give it to Dan just to...
Does that work?
Does the camera work?
It wasn't working the other day.
It's working because it wasn't working last time.
Yeah.
You can't work it. Okay. We're not talking about this camera, right?
Do you have the ability to pull up the code, Dan?
I'm sorry?
I guess we all have the ability to pull up the code.
Go for it, John. I think we can.
You could start and we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And my guess is you're wise, so we're gonna.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, the first one is pretty easy. 2.4.6B, public notification. It has to do with notifying the public about, when your timelines are, when they run, when they don't run. And sometimes in that, there's a chart that says, you get 10 days to do this, you get 15 days to do this, and your appeal has to be filed within 15 days. And sometimes the word calendar days is used, and sometimes it's not, which seems to me to be kind of an invitation for what you might be able to implement. It seems to be an invitation for perhaps litigation, if not just confusion.
Well, it's definitely for confusion, and even under the rules of civil procedure, which we're not under, but just to give an example, calculation of days can actually end up with large committing malpractice based on whether they do or do not count weekends and holidays or don't, depending on the issue. So to make it simpler, consistency in that process of how the days are calculated, that can be its whole section, whether it's going to be, if it's 7 days, it's 7 straight days, or 30 days, it's 30, or if it excludes weekends and holidays, but it should be one or the other, not both.
Right. Well, yeah, it just seemed to me that it wasn't, that it didn't specify necessarily. I could probably pull this up.
So what's your proposal though?
I would say either put calendar days in or take calendar days out. I didn't really have a particular one. I can look at the chart and make that determination.
Can I make a quick one? What if we said that unless otherwise noted, and just put it somewhere in the code, Dan? Maybe?
Yeah.
Dan, how about if we said somewhere in the code, unless otherwise noted, all days all calculations shall be based on, what do you want, calendar days?
We actually have that in the definition section of Article 10. It does say days are, so it says, the term day shall mean business day, Monday through Friday, excluding days on the Maitland City Council's closed due to a holiday, unless a calendar day is referenced.
So I think John's point still stands. So in the calculation of days, all calculations shall be based on calendar days unless otherwise noted.
Yeah, that would work.
How about we do this? Why don't you, if it's not otherwise before, so we're not fumbling around this, if it's in the code already, I'm sure John would say, great. If it's not in the code, why don't we put that provision in somewhere? Okay.
So the current language in the code says the term day means a business day. It's Monday through Friday.
We're not talking about the definition of day, though. We're talking about how you, if there's a point in the thing where it says you have 10 days to respond.
Right.
I think John's saying in some places it says calendar, in some places it doesn't. So to reduce any ambiguity where someone says, hey, you meant business days here, because you otherwise noted calendar somewhere else, you would just state, unless otherwise noted, all calculations will be based on calendar days.
I think, Tanner, you're saying that it's already in there?
Yeah, I'm saying in the rules of construction interpretation, it's 10-1-4 or 10.1.4 computation of time. 10.1.4b says the term day means a business day, Monday through Friday, excluding days where the city's closed, unless a calendar day is indicated. So in that, it says anytime it says the word day,
it means business day.
It means business day unless it specifically says calendar day.
So you're confident that?
Do you think it's there? You think it's caught?
I think that covers it, unless you...
I guess my question is, I mean, we had to go through you to understand that. Is that clarity of that language good enough?
Or you could drop a reference here.
Or a reference, yeah.
Maybe 2.4.6.
Yeah, we could definitely hyperlink that to where it talks about that section.
Yeah. All right, that's good. So we'll do that. So whenever the motion is made, this will include these.
We'll clarify this. We'll make sure that is understood in the document.
I feel like it's the moonlight.
That's some fancy driving there,
So the next one is the one I was talking about. The 2.5.4 is the administrative adjustment, and Mr. Williams was talking about. It does give lots of flexibility to the community development director, which we've never had before. And so I would suggest that we add that sentence there that's it's below, I don't know if you can zoom that in, or actually I can see it on the yeah, so it's a new 2.5.3 C3L. Meaning you could drop it in there, you don't have to renumber everything else.
Just for clarification, that is 2.5.4C.
I have an earlier, I was going off paper here.
2.5.3 is waterfront structure permit. It's not even 2.5.4 is the administrative adjustment. Everything else is the same. It fits in the same place.
Yeah.
It's just reference.
This is the administrative adjustment.
Correct.
Off-site parking. My next issue. Okay, this is a judgment call for us. It just what this says is that if you're a business and you want to, you can't accommodate all your parking on site, you can have an agreement with the off-site property to park your cars there. And if you know, in real life, what this was the Enzian issue that we had a couple of years ago when they had that parking agreement with the school right across the street, which was kind of, in my view, kind of flimsy, and it wasn't really something that I think that we could have enforced. And the problem you're going to run into there is, somebody's going to sell that off-site lot, and the business doesn't have the parking it needs, and then we have a problem. One of the issues in the current code you can do that, but it's got to be within 600 feet of your principal use. And in this revision, it would be 800 feet for residential off-site parking, and it'd be 1,250 feet, which is 2.5 blocks, and which just seems to me to be a long way to get your parking. But, you know, if you're in an urban environment, that might make more sense. But we're going from 600 feet to more than double that. You know, so the engine could have gotten, you know, 2 blocks away and said, our parking's good over there, we can find it somewhere else. I don't know how you all feel about that.
So what do you want to change?
I wanted to get it back down, just to have 800 be the standard for all of it. Currently, it's 800 for
800 for residential and 1250 for commercial.
This was kind of, I remember this when this first started, when I was on P&Z, and I think, Mike, I don't know if you were still on at that time, but the concern when we were talking about it was, you know, say across the street where the storage place is, wants to rent those spaces, let that be parking for the Enzian, then you're going to have a problem with crossing 1792, even though that's legal. So that was kind of a concern also at that time.
Dan, I mean, I hate to judge a code based on specific. It's hard. What do you think, Dan?
So the reason the numbers were picked was twofold. One of them, we are turning more into we wanted to create a walkable downtown. And generally, when you do that, you allow a little bit more, especially as you reduce the parking standards, you want to give opportunities throughout. The city of Orlando is 1250. A lot of other jurisdictions, usually 600 to 1250 is not uncommon. You usually see nowadays more 800 to 1,000. But 1250 is not uncommon as you get to some of the more established downtowns, which is what we were trying to create with this code, is an established downtown.
My thought on that one is that we sort of want to create centralized parking downtown and potentially less individual garages, so that would be my thought there, John. But I understand your point, but...
Yeah, the block is 600 feet, right? So more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just 2.5 blocks. I'm not against walking, I'm all for walking and everything, but it just seems to me it's a long way to go to get your parking. All right, I'll move on. This is kind of just wordsmithing on 5.2.5 HE2. I'm sorry. Yeah. 5.2.5 HE. So you have to get this agreement, but the way that it's phrased, the agreement is not actually required, it's kind of assumed to be required rather. So it really is just, I would kind of line through the last, well, this is kind of difficult to explain if you're actually looking at what it actually says, but it essentially says that the subhead says agreement required, but then it goes on to say, if you need off-site parking, then the arrangement shall be established in a written agreement. It complies with following requirements. It's just wordsmithing to say, if you want to have off-site parking, an agreement is required, and then go on with that. That's not a hell of a thing we need done tonight. That could be a glitch, I think. Somebody's going to have a parking agreement in the next couple of months here anyway. Let me get to the more important one. And these others can wait, I think. Since there's really nothing going on right now, I can wait, I think. But I do like I would ask that we put that qualification in for the administrative adjustment, just to make sure that we're all aware of what goes on. So there's more than a quarterly report. We should, there should be, from an accountability perspective, an idea that the council is up to date on what's happening with these things, because people are going to get really concerned.
Hey Dan, do these all have to be vetted before the agreement can be set in stone between the two parties through the city?
Yeah, typically what we do now is we do this, we do a shared parking agreement, and they're generally done at the site plan level, because that's when we're really reviewing the parking requirements and things like that. You generally don't see it at the building permit, because at that point, everything's already planned out and everything, and sometimes buildings, if they're just doing a fit up, that's not a change of occupancy, they don't have to get a building permit. So we usually get these as it's going through the site plan process, and we do, staff reviews it, Public Works as well as Community Development reviews it, and then if it meets the criteria, approves the shared parking agreements.
And then we don't ever have to worry about if it's in a dangerous place, because the city's already saw that and can approve or disapprove that agreement then, right?
Correct, and I think in the 5 years I've been here, I think we've done 2.
Okay, cool, thank you.
All right. And the last one is kind of also one that we're going to need some more edification, I think, from the consultants on regarding the development standards and why. We're applying these development standards to 15 different types of actions, but it exempts, for 2 of them, it exempts PDs. I'm not sure why that is, and there might be a reason, but I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of that tonight. And I think, Dan, you told me that we're going to ask the consultant about why that would be.
We talked with the consultants, and there's a few reasons why. One of it is the common law vested rights when you have an approved PD, and it gets confusing when you have a PD that has design standards that are already approved, and then it gets even trickier. What if they've only built out or gotten a site plan on phase 1, but they still have 2 or 3 versus something like Maitland Concourse North, where every lot has to come in for a PD. If they have to come in and modify the PD, then all standards apply. It's only when they have a PD that they don't have to modify that they're already vested for. So I think in talking with the consultants, they were concerned with some of the chances that it can bring us up for liability on that if we've taken away a vested right. But they said that they would recommend that this be one of the patch ordinances, so we can come back with some options and let council decide which direction they want to go, because there are a few different options we can go with this.
Okay. All right, well, let's for the purpose of getting through this tonight and not bogging us down, I think that really the only thing I would request is that calendar days, that drop that reference again so we know. So when somebody's using the code, they're in chapter 2, they don't have to go all the way to chapter 10 to understand what their rights are. And the administrative adjustment as well. So those are included in anybody's motion.
Can I have 1 second? This is not worth more than 10 seconds, but I talked to Dan about it. And I only just want to avoid fights with neighbors. So cypress mulch is under this code prohibited even in residential use. And to me, it just, someone told me about it, and then I looked it up, and Dan and I had a conversation. It looks like it is straight up prohibited in even residential. I get it in the commercial setting. We want to promote in a commercial setting, and we want to, I Googled it, and I looked at whether or not cypress is sustainable and the environmental benefits and whatever. I just think what I don't like is having something in the code that provides for either something we're not going to enforce or a potential fight with neighbors. So I would propose that we limit that to non-single family residential. That would be my thought.
I love cypress trees, so I probably disagree with him on that.
I'm not promoting the use of it or not.
I know, but any language that discourages cypress, it'll never amount to anything except maybe landscaping companies know that that's our thing. They won't go landscape somebody's yard with cypress.
It's not worth a whole lot of time, but I know people are going to go to Lowe's and they're going to buy.
Well, they probably will. I think the end result of this is we would have less cypress mulching, so we would have less cypress trees clear cut in the swamps.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change anybody's.
Probably the actual end result is the state is going to take away our ability to regulate cypress mulch.
The state will.
It's not worth the amount of effort. Like I said, I hate the setting up disputes where someone would call code enforcement because I use cypress mulch.
Right.
That's my opinion. had no lights on. So like I said, it's not worth, it probably wasn't worth.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the staff recommendation with the changes the mayor wants to calendar days and the administrative adjustment. Does that get in line?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Dan, this is your big moment. Lori,
We're going to open this up to the public.
I think we did it already, didn't we?
Yeah, we,
Oh, okay, sorry.
Dan's gonna go get drunk tonight.
Okay, Laura, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lau.
Aye. All right,
Thank you.
good. We have a new land development code.
And we just need a map.
Right, we're just about there.
Lori wants you to read this one quickly.
Is this the one?
Yes, this is the one.
All right.
Can we save the, is there a shortcut around this? I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. Lori, you've got 3 minutes, and we'll put the timer on. All right, what we're doing up here is we have an official zoning map to make the zoning map consistent with the WC that we just passed. And this is an ordinance that's going to have a long title. So Lori, would you please read the topic?
An ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of Maitland to conform with the updated City of Maitland Land Development Code by amending the zoning districts, boundaries, and changing the zoning map classification of properties as follows. Privately owned properties currently zoned RS-1 and RS-1A, single-family residential districts, changed to RSF-1, single-family 1 district. City-owned properties currently zoned RS-1 and RS-1A, single-family residential district, changed to GAP, Government, Arts, and Public District. Privately owned properties currently zoned RS-2, RS-3, temporary districts R1-AA, single-family residential districts, and temporary districts C3, commercial district, except for the property known as the King of Kings Evangelical Lutheran Church, changed to RSF-2, residential single-family district 2. City-owned properties currently zoned RS-2 and RS-3, single-family residential district changed to GAP, Government, Arts, and Public District. Privately owned properties currently zoned RS-5, single-family residential district changed to RSF-3, residential single-family 3 district. City-owned properties currently zoned RS-5, single-family residential district to GAP, Government, Arts, and Public District. Privately owned properties currently zoned RS-D and RS-D1, residential single-family and duplex district, changed to RSF-D, residential single-family and duplex district. City-owned properties currently zoned RS-D and RS-D1, residential single-family and duplex district, changed to GAP, Government, Arts, and Public District. Privately owned properties currently zoned RG-2 and RG-3, multifamily residential district, changed to R-MF, residential multifamily district. City-owned properties currently zoned RG-2 and RG-3, multiple family residential district, changed to GAP, Government, Arts, and Public District. Privately owned properties currently zoned PO-1, PO-2, PO-3, professional office district, RSF-4, single-family residential district, RG-1, multiple family residential district, and the property known as the King of Kings Evangelical Lutheran Church. Currently zoned temporary district R1-AA, changed to MX, mixed multifamily district. City-owned properties currently zoned PO-1, PO-2, PO-3, professional office districts, RSF-4, single-family residential districts, and RG-1, multiple family residential district, changed to GAP, government arts and public districts. Privately owned properties currently zoned OC, OC-1, and OC-3, office commercial districts and temporary district R1, single-family residential changed to WS-RT, West Side Research Technology Subdistrict, and WS-NM, West Side New Market Subdistrict. City-owned properties currently zoned OC, OC-1, and OC-3, office commercial district changed to GAP, government arts and public district. Privately owned properties zoned CC, cultural corridor district, except for the Civic Center property changed to MX, mixed multifamily district. City-owned property and the Civic Center property currently zoned CC, cultural corridor changed to GAP, government arts and public district, establishing and assigning a CHA-O cultural history and arts overlay upon all properties currently identified in the 1994 master plan as City of Maitland's cultural corridor special district, providing instructions to the city clerk, repealing all conflicting ordinances and providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
Right.
Could you repeat
Yeah.
that?
I think I missed the call.
The microphone was off, we had to redo that one.
Could you repeat that? All right, now we are,
Yeah, but it's better
Dan, can you translate this for us?
All right, so we talked about this extensively last time, so I'm just going to skip right through this. Basically, it's taking into consideration the comp plan and consolidating the zoning districts. Last time at the introduction, I showed you the interactive map that will go live tomorrow since this is adopted. And if there's any questions, of course, this was unanimously approved by P&Z and DRC. P&Z did recommend changing Dog Island to the GAP. DRC did agree with that and recommend the same. And of course, last meeting it was introduced unanimously, set tonight for the public hearing action date. Staff is recommending you guys adopt the zoning map and let it go live in the morning.
Okay, any questions of Dan? Seeing none, let's open the public hearing. Anybody from the public want to talk about the land development map? Seeing none, let's close the public hearing. And is there any further discussion? No.
Mr. Mayor, I move the staff recommendation.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie?
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison? Aye. Mayor Lowndes?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. City manager, is there any old business report?
So I do have one item. I'm trying to get through it quickly. At the last public period, a resident asked about the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday and why the city of Maitland is not closed. It's not an official city holiday, so we are open, and when there's business to be, garbage is picked up, all those things happen. The city has 9 holidays. They are when the city offices are closed: New Year's, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas, a city manager designated holiday, and in addition, the employees are given one float. General employees are given one floater for a day of their choosing to be off. So those are the 9 holidays. I spoke to the former city clerk and HR manager. Neither can remember it ever coming up as a topic of conversation. But I looked at all the other agencies, surrounding cities, counties, state offices. They all have the same holidays, with the exception that they all have Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a city official day. Offices are closed. So my suggestion is that the city manager's designated day, no one else has that. So it's unusual. You don't see them designating another day. They have some other things, but consistently most agencies do not have a day designated by the county or city manager. And since the personnel policies can be amended by the city manager, it's an administrative amendment if it has no financial impact to the budget, effective for 2023, because Martin Luther King Jr. Day already passed for 22. we could designate the city manager's day to be Martin Luther King Jr. Day in January. The advantage as well for employees is banks are closed, schools are closed. I mean, we are about the only thing open, and I think most people don't think we're open. So that would help parents who are dealing with school-age kids, and also recognize the importance of the contribution, that was made, and that's why that day has been since 1983, since the 80s. So if that works, that's what we'll do. It doesn't add another holiday, so that works out with police and fire. That one of their holiday pay days is a city manager day, so they still get that holiday pay, and you don't have to deal with any additional cost to the budget, because it's already budgeted for.
What do you need, just a thumbs up?
I just want to let you know, I think talking to the mayor, it was important that we, address it in this month and get it on the record and assure you that starting in 2023, that will be an official city holiday.
Well, it's time, yeah,
Yeah.
I think the last day of Black History Month, I think it's appropriate that we do that, so I appreciate looking into that, and I appreciate Mark Bryant Hall bringing that to our attention last time she was here, and so, yeah, that's great.
And like I said, oddly, it's never been brought up before. Employees use their floater if they have, school closure issues, so they'll just be able to use it on a different day.
Mm-hmm. Great. Good. Anybody? Anything on this? Okay. Next item is the consent agenda. Does anybody from the council want to remove any items from the consent agenda? None. Does anybody in the public have any comments on consent items number 3 and 4? Seeing none, let's close the public comment period.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
All right.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie?
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Okay, now we're on to the public period, which is the period where anybody can address the council on anything that's not on the agenda. Does anybody want to address the council on anything that's not on the agenda? Stacy? No? All right.
Thank you.
All right. Public period is closed. Decisions, we have one decision this evening, proposed third amendment to the Uptown Lot 2 Declaration of Restrictions and Agreement. Dan, would you introduce that item?
So just to give you a brief introduction to this, this is the third amendment to the Uptown Maitland Lot 2 Declaration of Restrictions. The second amendment council approved just a little over a year ago, and this third amendment was necessitated by a geotechnical report that came up during the site plan review process on some soil issues. There's no change in uses being proposed, no changes in maximum height being proposed, no change in size of square feet or use of the building being proposed. The only change is what was adopted as part of the agreement of Exhibit A. The original agreement had Exhibit A, which was the elevation, which had a 5-story building. The First Amendment and Second Amendment all had the elevation attached to it, and so this necessitated the amendment. So again, the square feet of retail office in the Second Amendment, which is currently approved, was between 9,700 and 56,000 square feet. There's no change to that. No change in the maximum retail size. No change in the approved uses being proposed. Maximum height in the Second Amendment was up to 5 stories, 55 feet top of roof plus 25 feet architectural. There's no change in being requested on that. The parking space ratio, there's no changes being requested to that. Again, the only change is the architectural form and elevation. That would go from 2 stories at 28 feet to 3 stories at 44 feet 8 inches. So this is a illustration of what the approved elevation of Exhibit A is in 2021, and the proposed elevation that has come for you in this amendment here. Again, this is the approved one in the Second Amendment. The applicant is looking to change the elevation to this facility here. It's a 3rd story. The parking is going to be, some of the parking is going to be underneath on the 1st floor as they have to put the pilings in for the soils. The trees back there aren't actually there, so please don't think that this has anything to do with that. So that's basically the reason they asked for this amendment. The applicant is here and is willing to discuss any further about the geotechnical report. He's a lot more familiar with it than I am, or the reasons, any other reasons that.
So the overall floor plate just came in
I'm sorry?
The overall floor plate had to come in because it couldn't go as far out?
No, it's the same footprint, it's just going up a little bit because the way the soils are, they had to put pilings in there and that necessitated it to be raised a little bit. And so with that being raised, there's going to be parking underneath. The cafe is still the same place, but what was originally a step down to get to it now is at ground level, so it's easier to get in and out.
So the parking is now underneath the building?
Some of the parking, yes.
I was trying to understand how that...
So it increases the parking.
It increases the parking, but still within the range that is approved in the Second Amendment.
Okay, does anybody have any questions of Dan, other questions, or of the applicant? Seeing none, a motion to be over. Wait, we need public comment. Oops, Lord. Okay, any public comment? Anybody, we're going to go to the public period now, for anybody to address us on this issue. Would anybody like to address us on this issue? Sheeperdecker's looking around, you see nobody. Former mayor says, close, the public hearing is closed. And if there's no further discussion, motion will be in order.
Mayor, I'll move approval of the Uptown Maitland Lot 2 declaration of restrictions in the inn.
Second on that.
Yeah, sure. I'll second the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to renew my ongoing concerns about this project. I know that it's beyond my ability to make any changes, but as a parent who has a child over at Maitland Montessori, I can say with absolute certainty that I have major concerns about additional traffic, additional use of that piece of property right there. I don't think that it supports what is going to go in there. I think once the residents find out that the building is now going to be an additional 25 feet taller than what they thought they were getting, they're going to be mad about it. That backs right onto a residential neighborhood where I think that there are a lot of people who think that they're getting a two-story building, they're going to find out they're getting a three-story building. They haven't been noticed. I think they're going to be annoyed about it. Not that notice was required. I think the applicant has done everything within his power and his discretion to try and put a building there that will fulfill the needs that he believes our community has. But I have substantial concerns about trying to figure out how to wedge 50 to 65 parking spots and people on that small piece of George where there's a driveway that comes off of George right in front of the school. That one piece of access is off of a private roadway where cars come and go all day long with children crossing from the parking lot. During school hours in the morning, it's very busy. During school hours in the afternoon, it's very busy. And there's a sharp corner turn right there where the lift station is. And you can't, it's a blind turn. You can't see cars coming. And imagining that there are going to be additional cars coming there to service the development that goes in there gives me great concern. That being said, I have no reason to vote against this other than the fact that I think that it's a terrible idea. But that in and of itself is NIMBYism, and I certainly heard enough of it this evening. So I'm just going to have to sit here and eat. Thank you.
So, Cliff, can you elucidate that a little bit, or Dan? I mean, the rights that are there, the height rights that are already baked in, we're not asked.
They're within, and I'm going to just use this term, it may not be the exactly right one, but they're within the envelope of allowable height and, use and so forth and so on. But they do need to be restrictions, and as I explained to someone earlier, who's here, because it's a request to amend essentially an existing agreement between you, and I don't recall it, I don't have it in front of me, but I don't think it uses the word that must be reasonably approved or something like that. So I think you have a lot of discretion here. But I'm not positive of that. Maybe Dan knows whether the actual agreement says uses some sort of word like reasonably approved, but I don't think it does. So at the end of the day, this is an amendment, and if it does say reasonably approved, then you have a lot of discretion, and if it it doesn't say that, it meets every other criteria that I'm aware of.
Dan, is that, do you have the agreement?
I have the second amendment agreement here. I don't see that language that Cliff was.
It would have been, if it's anywhere, it'd be in the initial one that tells you this can only be amended by, a vote of council, which vote, I don't know. Sometimes they say things like, which approval must be reasonably given, or must, something like the mayor, I'm sure, has seen that language. You've used it in development agreements before. I just don't know whether it's in this one, because this thing was done, 12 years ago or something, the original, maybe longer. It's been a while.
I mean, I haven't seen it, so.
Well, Dan's got the agreement, Cliff, look at it, probably.
Do you have?
I don't have the original agreement, I just have this.
That's what we're amending, and so we're amending it by whatever that standard is. We've been asked before to amend, and I think most of the times we've said yes, I think some of the times we've said no, but I honestly can't remember. It's been here more than once.
Right. No, I've seen it coming, this is Mr. Dalton.
Right, exactly. And to refresh everybody's memory who wouldn't have been here for that, the whole purpose of that is initially that lot and the one which is now the one on the corner, I forget its name.
Yeah.
Those things were tied together.
55 plus residential.
Yeah, right. And one was commercial, they were both split with residential and commercial. That's the initial plan. And then most of the rest, in fact, most if not all, maybe all but maybe 10 of the units got moved up here. And as a part of that agreement to allow that, we restricted that lot back there with deed restrictions. And they can only be amended in a certain fashion in accordance with what the deed restrictions say. But I don't have the restrictions to look at. But typically, it would be that they make a request, and if it was a regular contract, well, you know the answer. If it's a contract, you don't have to amend anything. But sometimes there's a requirement that says which approval will not be unreasonably withheld or something like that. I don't know, because it's been so long, whether that's in the agreement. But if you have the original, here, let me look. There it is. Give me a second. I'll tell you.
I guess, Lindsay, the question would be if this doesn't go through, but maybe go up to 5 stories, right? So what's the max limit?
Well, so the way the second amendment was is it had that elevation. That's the only reason they're in here. So in order to change the elevation, they're going to have to come back regardless of the development.
There is no reasonableness language. It's very short, 3 pages, and paragraph 15 is the only thing that speaks to amendments. And it says, any amendments to or removal of these restrictions shall be invalid unless such amendments or removal are approved in writing by the developer or its successors and assigned, and the city council of the city of Maitland, which means you have a veto if you want to use it.
All right.
Discussing this now.
Well, it's just that we have a motion, second for discussion, and so now we know what the standard is we have to apply, which is great discussion.
Yeah, it's like any other agreement. If you're asked to amend the contract, you don't have to say yes. A deed restriction is a contract. And so some contracts have that reasonableness language we've talked about. This one just says it has to be approved by the developer in writing and you. It doesn't say what standard you're to use. That means you can say yes or no.
So, but what is the, let's see, so the maximum height is 1 to 5 stories?
Yeah, it's the maximum height is like 55 something, I think. This one is only like 42 or 3 or something.
So the owner or the developer has the right to go up to 55 feet?
Yeah, this is a technicality that requires the deed restriction amendment because of some, and maybe you can better explain, why does the deed restriction need approval? What is the change that's implementing the deed restriction?
Because the amendments, the original one as well as both amendments had a specific Exhibit A, which was the elevation approved. So that rode with the agreement. Because he's having to change the elevation, even though it doesn't change any of the envelopes of the development, that elevation needs to come back here because it is different from what was approved.
So that's the answer. If it weren't for the elevation change, there would be no amendment to the covenants. Because there is, you have some say. Whether you want to use it, that's up to you.
So we've already approved this project. We've approved the business there with the traffic, and so basically, through no fault of his own, the developer's confronted a geological issue that is forcing him to raise the building 1 story. And this is next to, what is that, 6 stories, the apartment complex?
I think
6. So I don't think a 3-story building is gonna when it's right next to a large 6-story apartment building. And we've kind of already been through this. I understand the traffic concerns, but we've been through that discussion. Personally, I kind of have a problem with, since when business is set up here, it gets to control what gets developed over there. Like I have first dibs on traffic. So to me, it's just, he ran into some bad luck. And he's going to have to spend a lot more money to build his building. And it'll have more parking, so I don't see any reason not to approve it.
Okay.
To be clear, I don't see any reason not to approve it either. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Which I said, I don't have any reason not to approve it. And I talked to the former mayor about this, and he called me and we had a conversation about it. I am concerned about the traffic because the driveway into this building is directly on that tiny little strip of George where there really isn't enough room to put 2 cars there right now. And anybody who's backing out of those lateral parking spots are going to back straight into the traffic that goes right onto that driveway. So I think the lot itself is problematic, but there's no reason not to approve the change that he's requesting, other than the fact that the neighbors may or may not have a fit. But once again, not the issue.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Lori, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie?
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Mayor Brown?
Aye. It is, we got discussion. Anybody have any discussion items they want to raise?
I got two things I wanted to say real quick.
We'll call this reports.
Oh, report, sorry. No discussion.
Yeah, there's no discussion. Go ahead.
So, first of all, I'd like to take a second and say, so everybody knows it's Barrett's birthday today. He's been here. He's going to be with his family. Happy birthday, Barrett. You look good. You look good for 24. And then I just want to give praise because right now, I mean, anytime you walk your dogs down the street or you're just riding your bike and you see all the leaves out there, I just wanted to give a little love out to our street sweepers, Terry, and the whole stormwater crew for, doing a job that keeps a lot of nutrients out of our lakes. So they do a great job, and thank you guys very much for your hard work. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney,
Just an update, somebody said or asked last time about when the hearing will be. On the most recent version of our motion to dismiss in the Pico Court case, it's finally been scheduled. It'll be May 23rd at 10 a.m. It's scheduled for 45 minutes, and I think it's still by Zoom, although it would be lovely if it was in court just because I like to talk to people. I will keep you posted. I don't see anything that shows me that they'll have a different result, except that we do have a different judge. But that shouldn't change. The law didn't change, just the judge did, so.
Great, thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Early voting this week.
Early voting, says early voting?
This week.
I'm sorry?
Early voting? Early voting is happening.
Election.
Election, just like,
My replacement.
yes.
I don't know anything about that.
No, this is just for her.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yes, this is her report. Lori, report, early voting. Okay, where's Where's really going to be made? Anything in Maitland, or is it all?
All down at the supervisor of elections on 119 West Chelsea.
Oh, Winter Park's not doing it? The library?
No.
No?
It's part of the legislation.
There's only one, there's only one.
Oh, yeah, terminate anything, yeah, everybody's
Just
approaching.
down there.
Between 6 and 7 a.m. next Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's a fresh from
You have to wear a purple shirt.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Let's adjourn. Thank you.